across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 6 in the morning. Shall we get to work? A very happy Saturday, one and all. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. A big 4 hours to come. And breaking this morning, disgraced Peter Mandelson has his London and Wiltshire homes searched by police in a scandal that threatens to engulf this Labour government. And with the prospect of defeat in the Gorton and Denton by-election and an expected bloodbath in the May local elections, the ones that haven't been cancelled, could the Prime Minister resign in days? We'll bring you more on a number 10 operation in total meltdown. Meanwhile, the BBC licence fee goes up to £180 in April. Is it worth the money? Do you still watch and listen to the BBC? Give me your worst examples of BBC wokery, of BBC bias, of BBC political correctness. Let's name and shame. And the word in Westminster is that Angela Rayner is now a dead cert to replace Sir Keir Starmer. So my question to you this morning at 4 minutes past 6 on a Saturday, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000 is my phone number. Give Tommy a call, pick up the phone. Tommy, here's what I got to say. Put me on the radio and put me on the TV. Because don't forget that Talk Breakfast is multi-platform. Did you know we did 2 million digital views last weekend? We must be doing something right. It wouldn't cost you a penny, by the way. I'm not asking you for £180. Do you know what I'm asking you for? 180 minutes. I'm here to serve, folks. And by the way, what about those radio figures? Well, through the roof are radio numbers. More of you are listening and for longer. 2 words, thank you. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? She is now a shoo-in for the top job. What will Britain look like under her leadership? She'd have about 2.5, 3 years in charge. What will she do to the country? You tell me. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. I'm going to be really good on the text today because we have such busy shows. It's hard to keep up with all the correspondence. So I'm going to prioritise your texts. And we do, don't we, Dean Spencer? We love a voice note because you're busy. It's Saturday morning. You're getting stuff sorted out, aren't you? Getting the kids ready for their football practice. Maybe you're at the tail end of a long shift, in which case I salute your efforts, your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. Whatever you're up to this morning, we've got your back. But I just want you to tell me, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? Voice notes, text, give us a call. As the saying goes, let's talk. We are, of course, on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online, with the numbers going through the roof. Thank you for that. And you can watch the show as well. It's a television product. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. We'll kick off with today's front pages. So many to get through. First of all, the Sun newspaper, who I think win the headline of the day. Police rummage through Mandy's drawers. The disgraced Peter Mandelson's 2 homes were last night searched by cops probing intelligence leaks to his paedophile financier pal Jeffrey Epstein. Plain-clothed Met police officers swooped on the disgraced Labour peers' properties in Camden, North London and Wiltshire. Now, by the way, this guy is so rich. Why do all the lefties make so much money when they leave politics? They're all absolutely loaded. How much is Blair worth, that wonderful socialist? 100 million? Alistair Campbell, multi-millionaire. They love their money, don't they, these socialists? How ironic. Well, what they want to do is they want to hoover up all the cash and let you live on porridge. That is what the socialists do. They enrich themselves whilst the rest of us go hungry. Two houses, Mandelson, a massive country estate in Wiltshire. And when they say, the Sun newspapers say his house in Camden, let me be clear, it's Regent's Park. He's basically the Queen's neighbour, right? Very, very, very wealthy man. So corrupt, these lefties. It's absolutely shocking, isn't it? But do you know something? The Mandelson story has been overcooked. What's useful about the Mandelson story is it demonstrates once again Keir Starmer's shocking judgment. This guy should never play Deal or No Deal because he will choose the empty box, won't he? I've never actually seen Deal or No Deal, but is it an empty box or there's a banana in there if you've not done well? I don't know what the story is, but Keir Starmer is an incredibly thick man. I mean, he's just stupid, isn't he? We keep being told that he's this amazing, venerated former lawyer. Well, asleep at the wheel whilst Jimmy Savile committed his crimes. Now, they say that that case did not cross his desk. He was Director of Public Prosecutions. I thought the person in charge goes when there's been an egregious mistake. That poor old bloke at the Office for Budget Responsibility, he went when they accidentally leaked the budget a couple of hours early. Of course, it was old Rachel from accounts that should have gone, but he stood down. Starmer is not very bright, I would suggest. I mean, he's certainly got no political judgment. He should never play Snap or any of those games that involve an either or. That guy should never do multiple choice because he will pick the wrong option. He has the reverse Midas touch. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? And what's amazing about this whole Mandelson story is that it didn't need to be a crisis for this government because Keir Starmer comes from a different generation of Labour politicians. Mandelson is from the Blair era when Starmer wasn't in politics. There was no need to bring Mandelson back. And yet there is Keir Starmer thinking, well, look, Boris Johnson's had a bit of scandal, Liz Truss had a bit of scandal. Hold my beer, because I'll upgrade everything and I'll bring Peter Mandelson back into public life. So it's an amazingly embarrassing, self-inflicted crisis. I can assure you that Starmer is hurting this morning. He won't have got much sleep last night. He's in a lonely place. It's lonely at the top, folks, but he's only got himself to blame. He's just rubbish. He's just rubbish at politics. And he's a bad decision maker. His judgment is zero. Honestly, if I try to be creative and think, you know, what is good about Keir Starmer, I can't tell you. I would assume he was a good lawyer because what he's good at doing, he's got no principles. But what do lawyers do? Lawyers have to take a position, don't they? They get given a case and they get say, oh, there's this guy called Big Steve and, you know, he was found with the bloody dagger, right? His missus, you know, in a whatever, in a basically he's knocked off his missus. The police got there. He's holding the bloody dagger, right? He's obviously done it, right? This guy, Big Steve, has knocked off his missus. And Keir Starmer, as a lawyer, has got to come in and defend that guy. Go, no, it wasn't his knife, wasn't his wife. He was out partying in Ibiza that night. That's what lawyers do. Even if they know that the person they're representing is guilty, they will defend the case. So all lawyers, in a way, have to be liars. They've all got to be charlatans. They've all got to propound an argument that they don't believe in. And so if you are a lawyer to your core and you go into politics, well, you're going to do the same thing when it comes to policy. So you don't actually think anything, so you just have a bunch of positions that you're going to adopt and defend. Well, that's not the same as principle. That's not the same as vision. It was so easy for Mrs. Thatcher to be Prime Minister for 11 years because she thought those things. Those things she said, she thought them. She thought the state was too big. So she decided to shrink it. She thought that taxes were too high, so she decided to reduce them. She thought inflation was too high, so she cut the public sector. She thought that Britain was insecure militarily, so she invested in the military. She believed in the individual. She believed in social cohesion and social mobility, which is why she said to the working class, "Do you know something? You're not going to be the working class anymore. We're not going to keep you down in the pit of society. You're going to have the right to buy your council property, stick a conservatory at the back of it, borrow money on it, give it to your kids, sell it, start a business." She wanted to empower everyone, and she destroyed the class system. She got rid of the idea of being working class. She believed in stuff, so it was so easy for her to be Prime Minister. It was a cinch. She didn't break a sweat for 10 years. She got it wrong on the poll tax, and she became isolated towards the end and stopped listening to people, which always happens. It's beginning to happen to me on this show, I got to tell you. I've become quite imperious. Producer Dean will assure you of that. But look, whereas Starmer's had to spend the first year and a half of his premiership second-guessing what the opinion polls say, what the people around him say, and he's been sort of buffeted from one crisis to another. He tries to reduce welfare spending. The backbenchers won't have it. It's amazing. He's the first Prime Minister with a big majority leading as though he's got a hung parliament. It's quite extraordinary. In office, but not in power. And it's because he's not suited to this role. He should never have entered politics in the first place because he doesn't think anything. And it's so much easier when you do. But the other thing to say just on this Mandelson story, the Times newspaper, Rayner, I warned Starmer not to appoint Mandelson. The Daily Telegraph, police raid Mandelson's homes. Weekend, Mandelson's homes raided by police. If you look at all of these stories, none of this matters, I would humbly suggest to you. This Mandelson stuff is a soap opera. To a degree, it's a Westminster bubble story. Yes, it tells us that we've got a Prime Minister with no judgment, who, by the way, is inherently devious and corrupt because he knew full well that Mandelson was a mate of a disgraced paedophile. But what's that got to do with inflation and unemployment and crime and school places and NHS waiting lists? Because I would humbly suggest that that's what matters to you. And therefore, the press have focused a lot on this today, on the Mandelson story. But the bigger crime of this Labour government is not its appointments to diplomatic positions. The crime of this Labour government is its policies. The things that it's doing, the national insurance tax raid, which has caused businesses to close down, to stop investing, to stop hiring, to stop giving people promotions and pay rises, and to lay people off. These are the dangerous, ruinous policies of this Labour government. So yes, we're going to talk about Peter Mandelson today, but where's my focus at 6:15 in the morning on a Saturday? My focus is you and your life and how your life is being affected by that. That's why I care. That's what gets me up in the morning. And I've got to say, I said about Margaret Thatcher that it was so easy for her to be Prime Minister because she thought those things. She did stuff that she believed in, including empowering people, giving them choice, and also trusting private enterprise. Well, I've got to tell you that this job for me is so easy because I just have to wake up in the morning, look out the window and say what I see. There's a bloke in a dress, calls himself Stephanie. He's still a bloke, right? That's so easy for me. I mean, how many times has Starmer been asked, what is a woman? And every time he completely freaks out. He goes into meltdown. He doesn't know what working people are. I know what working people are. Working people are people that have a job. Working people are the people that made a decision not to be paid for by the state, that they were going to pay their own way. That's what working people are. It's anybody that puts a shift in. But did you see him, do you remember, on Nick Ferrari's show all those years ago? Working people are people that sometimes go to work or don't go to work. Basically, he got himself in a pickle because he was trying to say working class. But as far as I'm concerned, anyone that works is a hero. And that could be Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. He works and he's a hero. And so is a caller to this show last weekend whose name I've forgotten, and I want to apologise. I need to start writing these names down because you are all legends. But this guy called the show, and he's in his early 60s. In fact, if you're listening, young man, give me another call. He's a bricklayer. He's early 60s. He should have or could indeed have his feet up. His fingers, his body's wrecked from being a bricklayer because, the knees and the hands, all the joints, arthritis, carrying that heavy stuff around, and also imagine erecting a wall, in 5-degree centigrade conditions, right? In all weathers. It's tough on the body, and yet he's up in the morning and he goes to work, and he's a hero too. Anybody that works is a working person, and Labour is at war with those people. So yeah, you got Mandelson, and Rayner's going to come in. She'll be our next Prime Minister. My focus is not the personalities, it's not the scandal, it's not the Westminster bubble. I actually don't give two damns about Peter Mandelson. It was clear from the start he was a wrong 'un. You wouldn't have hired him. I don't know what you do for a living. If you run a business, would you have hired Peter Mandelson with his track record, having left cabinet twice in disgrace? Of course not. You wouldn't hire him. But old two brain cell Starmer, hold my beer, let's give this guy the biggest job in diplomacy. But none of that matters. What matters is the cost of petrol and the cost of a loaf of bread and a pint of milk, right? Inflation, that matters. Unemployment matters. Cheap energy. Those are the things. Safety on the streets. I've stopped reading my phone in public now because it will no doubt get snatched out of my hand by some hooded thug. Anyway, folks, there you go. Listen, so much to get through. My question this morning is a simple one, which is, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000. Dean has messaged the show, which is the same name as my amazing producer, Dean Spencer. And Dean has said, good morning, Mark. After her tax issues, Rayner should not even be an MP, let alone PM. Good morning, Mark and team, says Rachel. I woke up in a good mood this morning until you suggested the ginger growler could be PM. We are already a laughing stock on the world stage. This cannot be allowed to happen. Sharon says, Mark, Rayner will have taxpayers paying for all of these lazy people that have so many children, and expect taxpayers to pay for their children for them. Dave says, good morning, Mark. What a surprise. Every front bencher now distancing themselves from either Mandelson or the decision to appoint him. They all need to go once and for all. Hev says, good morning, Mark. I reckon Starmer got his job at the CPS for winning a game of Cluedo. I think the ginger growler will be more entertaining in PMs if she gets the top job. Michael in North Staffordshire, good morning, Mark. Starmer defended terrorists and in general anyone who hated the UK. He plays the part of a fool so he can damage the UK as much as possible, as none of his decisions make sense. There is no way he could have been a good lawyer. He's incapable of making a decision right or wrong. He needs several advisors. How do people as bad as the politicians we have rise to the top? They are terrible. And Maggie, good morning, Mark. It doesn't matter who takes over as Labour leader. Labour is finished. Has Angie paid back her taxes yet? Oh, to have a leader like Thatcher back. Well, that is from Maggie in London, who is, of course, her namesake. Listen, folks, so much to get through. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? I've got one of the country's finest broadcasters live in the studio next.
should we even be looking towards Starmer? Who is actually running the country? It actually opens this Pandora's box of who is in charge, because it doesn't actually seem like Keir Starmer, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, Mr. I'm a lawyer, I'm going to tick every box and look at everything, is actually running it. So I do wonder, who are the powers that be at the Labour Party? The Spectator wrote a great article about it all, about the people who are actually pulling the strings, and it's not Keir Starmer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Captain Caveman Rayner should be in jail for tax evasion, says Pete. We all know that it's going to be silly banned, though, so quickly buy plenty of candles. Well, what they're talking about, Pete, is the dream team of Miliband and Rayner. Talk about Dumb and Dumber, eh? The Chuckle Brothers. Thanks, but no thanks. We've got another Dean in Ealing. Mark, they told us lawmakers can't be lawbreakers when Boris ate some cake. She didn't pay the tax. How can she ask us to pay tax when she didn't? Well, I'm sitting on a massive, massive Angela Rayner story, which I'm going to come to in a moment. But first, live in the studio, one of the country's finest broadcasters, Duncan Barks. Good morning, Duncan.
Morning, Mark.
So, the politics nerd in me is quite excited about this Mandelson story because he's a national figure, of course, the architect of the new Labour project, and he's been around for years, more comebacks than Taylor Swift. But actually, when you get down to brass tacks, this is not of great importance to our viewers and listeners. What actually matters is inflation. Unemployment is back. The cost of filling your car with petrol. School places, GP appointments, NHS waiting lists. And this sideshow is nothing more than a distraction. At the heart of this is a government, yes, poor judgment to hire Mandelson, but with awful policies that are damaging my viewers and listeners.
Indeed, and also the timing of this, you know, just over 18 months since Labour came into office, right? I mean, it's just been disastrous from start to finish the last
Started with Freebiegate, didn't it?
Oh, I mean, Freebiegate, and then we've ratcheted up so many U-turns, you know, it's the kind of the situation you find with a dodgy sat-nav you got from a market stall for $4.99. It's just been, they're so bad at politics, right? And not only is it's never been clearer that they entered government with no plan whatsoever.
No plan.
They came into power, there's no belief, there's no conviction, and then you've just got scandal after scandal after scandal. And you're absolutely right, for political nerds like you and I, and some of Talk's viewers and listeners, what we're seeing on the front pages of many of this morning's newspapers is just golden. However,
it's an entertaining soap opera.
But it's also a disturbing soap opera, because if you dig too deeply, you start to get quite depressed. I mean, for me, the next part of this story is going to be when these WhatsApp messages get released, when these files get released, you know, how deep was Mandelson? Who else was he talking to regarding, well, I'm doing this with government, you might be interested in this? I mean, as a country, that is really, really disturbing stuff. But you're right, all of this is going on whilst, if you look at the economy, and some Labour MPs have been trotted out on the media circuit over the last couple of days going, well, things are getting slightly better. Are they? Are they? Walk down a high street in the United Kingdom and tell me things are getting better. Tell me that when you get your shopping trolley and you go to your local supermarket and stuff, that you're not going, blimey, have I just spent 49 quid on like something that used to cost me £35 in terms of my weekly shop? Things aren't getting better.
You cannot go, I cannot go into the Co-op, which is my local, but you know, other supermarkets are available. I cannot go in and spend less than 10, 15 quid.
I know, it's a shocker.
And that would be a bit of bread, bit of milk, some butter. You know, there's nothing fancy. We're not talking about Jacob's Creek at the moment, because my body's a temple. We're just talking about the basics. And it's really, really shocking. And that's, I think, what matters. And let's have a look at some of those front pages, Duncan, because we've got The Guardian newspaper. Luke, let's flash that one up if we can. Revealed Labour minister handed files on reporters. A Labour minister was provided with intelligence files gathered on journalists who were investigating the think tank that helped propel Keir Starmer to power.
Yep.
We've got the Daily Express.
Can I just say, that's not remotely sinister, is it?
Well, do you know what I mean?
I mean, imagine the file that they got on you.
Oh, it's a long one.
And possibly me and anyone else. It's just like, what's the matter with these people?
I'll tell you, when the truth comes out about me, mainly not paying for carrier bags at the aforementioned co-op. Right. And I got admonished by the lady there the other day going, right, you have to pay for that bag.
So when it comes up on the screen, you just go, no bag.
Yeah,
but you got a bag.
I do. Full disclosure, I'm an open book.
And what's your rationale about that? Which is, I'm giving you my custom, so give me a bag.
They got these rubbish little, they're made of
green, aren't they?
Corn or something. Yeah, they rip the second you open them, you know what I mean? But, well, I felt like it was the spirit rather than the letter of the law. And but she wasn't happy. Barbara, her name was. She took me down, and I apologise profusely. But I think that's about as bad as it gets. The Daily Express, Death Wish TV licence fee hike hurts us all. We'll come to that shortly. Daily Mirror, Monster gets 40 more years. Missed chance to stop Suffolk Strangler. Weekend, Mandelson's homes raided by police. And Daily Mail, police knock on door of Mandelson's 12 million quid London home and remove boxes of evidence. Why are all these former left-wing politicians so incredibly rich?
Now, there's a very interesting couple of paragraphs on the front page of this morning's Daily Telegraph, which talks about Lord Mandelson's property. And the one that's been raided, it says he bought the £7.6 million property in 2011 following advice from Epstein. According to documents published in the files, he consulted the financier over the prospective purchase of multiple properties valued well in excess of his government salaries, raising questions about how he planned to finance the deals. It's a fair question, isn't it?
It really is.
You know, if you're bringing in a certain amount of money as a politician, I mean, what is it now? If you're an MP, it's about 95 grand a year, isn't it? You know, and if you're a minister, that gets bumped up a little bit. By anyone's stretch of the imagination. And of course, he did work in the private sector elsewhere as a consultant when he wasn't in government. But, you know, if you've got if you purchased a £7.6 million property in 2011, questions have got to be asked, right?
Most definitely. This is a man who loves money, loves rich and powerful and famous people, and has always lived beyond his means.
Yeah, and of course, all you have to do is look at one of his resignations from government in the past, not this government, but going back almost a couple of decades now, when there were questions over the mortgage that was obtained on his property, you know, and potentially people that he is alleged to have borrowed money off. So, you know, for me, it goes full circle, because I watched Starmer's slightly grovelling speech, I'm sorry but I'm not sorry, that he gave in Hastings on Friday, and I'm sorry, I believe the lies, basically, isn't it? You know, it was not an outright apology, and you kind of watch that and you just go, but mate, the stuff was there. You know, this is a guy, Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson as he was, because he's left the House of Lords now, hasn't he?
Yep.
Who twice had to resign from government because, and I'm putting it politely, because he does deny any wrongdoing still to this day regarding what we're talking about on the front pages now and in the past. But in the past, he had to resign twice from government. There was a big cloud over his departure, and Starmer knew this. So when people just go, oh, this is you know, something that maybe is just a little bit SW1, a bit Westminster-ish, and you and I have already talked about the fact that, you know, this is, for political anoraks like us, really, really interesting. Fundamentally, though, there is a question about Starmer's judgment in appointing Mandelson as US ambassador.
Well, most definitely, and in some ways, you can't blame Mandelson, because it's priced in that the guy is a flawed individual who always brings trouble wherever he goes. He's obsessed with money and powerful people. He's a slippery character. He's a wrong-un, I would humbly argue. I think the evidence bears that out. But there are plenty of wrong-uns out there. And the truth is that what you shouldn't do is bring them back into public life, which of course Starmer has. How ironic now that this scandal appears to be perhaps the straw that breaks the camel's back.
I mean, there's so much. The ripple effects of this are genuinely fascinating. A lot of speculation in this morning's papers about what this means for people like Wes Streeting, who's our current health secretary. He is someone who has been deleting pictures of him and Mandelson from his social media in the last couple of days. And again, you just go, don't just delete delete it, actually explain why you're deleting it.
Correct.
As opposed to just delete.
And own it.
Own it. Because all you're doing at the moment is you look a bit, and there's no suggestion that Streeting's done anything wrong, but it looks a bit dodgy that you're just deleting pictures of a man who you were quite happy to be seen with a few days ago. But there's a lot of speculation about what this means for people like Wes Streeting and his leadership ambitions, because he was mentored in many ways by Lord Mandelson. So you've got some people just going, this won't damage Wes at all, because he's been very clear that everything is above board. But there are other people just going, if there's going to be some kind of clean break for Labour off the back of this, and there's going to be someone ultimately who replaces Sir Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting was in the running, but now the chances of him actually succeeding, because of his previous relationships and involvement with Mandelson, actually is a bit tainted. So if you want a fresh start, you don't put someone in Downing Street who actually was highly supported by Mandelson.
Well,
so Streeting
right.
is just like, well, where does that leave him? He's not in a good position.
Well, that's right. You get rid of Starmer in order to rid the party and the government of the ghost of Mandelson, replacing him with Mandelson's protege, or you get rid of Starmer because of essentially a sort of sleaze culture within the administration, and replace him with someone that still hasn't paid stamp duty on her main home.
I know. I mean, where does it go? I kind of, again, there's some great pieces in today's paper. What does it mean regarding Angela Rayner? I mean, there's a great quote on the front page of this morning's Times. It would be, this is one Labour minister who's given an anonymous quote to the Times. It would be a complete disaster because she wouldn't be capable of doing the job of Prime Minister, said one minister. She would be Labour's Liz Truss.
Yikes! Well, we found an extraordinary article, a historic piece of evidence that she would be an awful Prime Minister. This is for The Telegraph in June 2024. Angela Rayner, every part of Britain must take its fair share of migrants. And she's probably going to be our next Prime Minister. We'll discuss that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It's 6:35. Dolan's dispatch coming at 9 a.m. The BBC licence fee is going up to £180. That's the topic of today's Dolan's dispatch. Do you still watch the BBC? What was the last thing you saw? Can you give me examples of BBC wokery, of BBC bias, and of BBC political correctness gone mad? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Yvonne in Somerset has messaged the show. And she says, Mark, Starmer and Boris have the same playbook. Both don't believe in what they told voters. They just wanted to be PM. Starmer will go the way of Boris. Yvonne, I totally agree. I've always thought there were parallels between Boris and Starmer. I think Boris is a lot more entertaining, a lot more talented, a lot more intelligent. But he didn't really have a plan for office, and he definitely wasn't a true Conservative. And he folded with the wind, didn't he? He gave in to Sage with the COVID overreaction. He gave in to the Home Office with the Boris wave. The guy's got no backbone, and neither does Starmer. So an interesting point there, Yvonne, which I share. This from Bill in Cheshire. Starmer's blame game. Now who else will this cowardly, worthless, treacherous piece of so-and-so blame next? The Tories? He's not happy about that. That's Bill. Andy in Sheffield. Mark, Angela Rayner and Millipede, Ed Miliband, the dream team, a nightmare team. Our country has already gone down the pan. Unfortunately, it can only get worse. Great show. I've been a regular listener and texter for years. Congratulations on the figures. You deserve it. You're our only voice. Andy, thank you for that. Well, that's something that we try to be very humble about. I do know it's a great burden to occupy the national radio and television airwaves, and I use this platform to get your views out there and focus on the things that matter, which is not a Westminster bubble story of Peter Mandelson and who said what and when. It's about inflation, it's about unemployment, it's about the cost of filling your car with petrol, it's about safety on the streets, GP appointments. That is what matters, I would humbly suggest. Good morning, Mark, says Bill in Thailand. If our Ange becomes PM, we could have 7 women in the top jobs, no experience in business. And how about this from Michael in Staffordshire? Good morning, Mark. Great show. I've enjoyed watching and listening as you are always fair. Oh, thank you for that, Michael. He says, Angela Rayner will be awful. Like the ex-disgraced Chief Constable of West Midlands, she sold out to the Muslim vote. We know she is dishonest from the tax dodging. We need a general election and King Charles should instruct Starmer he's not having any of those as PM, albeit Rayner was a care assistant and can see to his bed bath when she visits him. Time for a change. Michael, thank you for that. Well, we've done a little bit of investigative journalism, haven't we, Dean, on Angela Rayner, and we've unearthed quite the story at 38 minutes past 6 on a Saturday morning, and it's from the Telegraph, 26th of June 2024. Angela Rayner, every part of Britain must take its fair share of migrants. Rayner insists all authorities must house successful asylum seekers who will be eligible for places in 1.5 million social housing properties. And this, Duncan Barks, will be our next Prime Minister, most likely.
Yeah, it's not a great story to come across, and it's a testament to your team here at Talk this morning to find stuff that she said in the past, but it does give us a real sense of what she believes in, and it should be concerning. I mean, you look at where various parts of the UK in terms of communities or market towns have been changed literally overnight in their demographic. Look at Crowborough in East Sussex, right, where you had that military base that's now been turned over for asylum seekers, and you've got local people who are protesting about it, going, look, this is just not right. And I know Crowborough, you know, I'm a Sussex lad, I don't come from East Sussex, I'm West Sussex, but Crowborough is a market town. Yeah. All right, it doesn't have a massive population. Ultimately, it's going to be 500 to 700 asylum seekers coming and going as they please from this military base, so there's no restriction on them. It massively changes the demographic of a town. And if anyone kicks off about it, and the good people of Crowborough protested about it and stuff, the left-wing media and left-wing politicians go, just being racist, you just don't like different skin colours. It's got nothing to do with that. It doesn't matter what the skin colour is. If you put a massive chunk of people into a community who have a different belief system and different values and come from a different culture, that understandably rings alarm bells. You know, so given those comments that Rayner made, what, back in 2024? 24, yeah. You know, a couple of years ago, it is concerning because potentially, whilst this government can't get a grip on the illegal channel crossings, you could see more people in this country and her just going, well, you know what, guys, you're going to have to suck it up. You're going to have people in your village, in your town, and if you don't like it, well, you know, I'm not listening because basically you're some kind of racist.
So it is likely that Angela Rayner will be our next Prime Minister. So given the fact that I've said that we need to focus on policy rather than personality, what will Angela Rayner do if she wins power?
Well, she's a dyed-in-the-wool socialist, isn't she? I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you know, I take the view that Starmer is a socialist, but some of his own backbenchers think he's the wrong kind of socialist. He's not socialist enough. He's not left-wing enough. Whereas Rayner is the darling of the, not the hard left, but certainly the stronger left.
Yeah, they call it the soft left, don't they? As represented by Ed Miliband and others.
Yeah, and she's massively loved by the unions.
And soft is a very misleading word.
Yeah, it's a bit of spin, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It's because it's not the Blue Labour is sort of the right of the party.
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
And,
yeah.
But and I think sometimes when they hear soft left, people think it means blue Labour. It's not. It's a rump of hardcore lefties.
It is, and Rayner is massively supported by the unions. You know,
They love her. They love her.
love
And
her to
they'll be
pieces.
wanting their pound of flesh if she wins.
Well, let's look at this, because you have Unite and you have Unison, who are two of the biggest donors / funders of the Labour Party. They both currently have leaders, general secretaries, who are not fans of Starmer because they don't like what Starmer's done so far, right? They will love Rayner. That is significant because, as you rightly mentioned, Mark, they will want their pound of flesh. The other thing we have to consider is, given all of her utterances in the past about, you know, welfare and government spending and whatnot, the impact this will have on the markets. The markets will panic if Rayner goes into Downing Street, because I don't think she understands the economy. I think she's one of a rump of Labour MPs, actually the majority of them, who just think there is this kind of magic money tree, which we know doesn't exist, because the money, if it doesn't come from taxation, and it isn't misspent, the money comes from borrowing on the markets.
Correct.
Right? And they will make the cost of borrowing more expensive if Rayner is in Downing Street, because she is not a friend of the economy. She's not a friend of enterprise. So
well, even Andy Burnham, who is considered by some to be a more moderate Labour Party figure, crashed the markets.
The bond markets,
The bond markets, when he said that he was going to be Prime Minister because of wealth taxes and a socialist agenda.
Exactly. So you could see, in some ways, you know, Rayner is a female version of Burnham in that particular sense, and consequently any of her utterances would have an impact on the bond markets, making it more expensive for us to borrow, which is not good for our economy. You know, at the moment, and you and I have talked about this, to service our debt interest alone in this country, the interest, not the rump of the money we borrowed, the interest, we are paying £105 billion a year in interest alone.
That's 2 government departments.
Yeah. You get someone like Rayner in Downing Street, they will rack up the cost of borrowing because they will see her as a liability. And we can't afford that.
Well, there's trouble at mill, isn't there? If you go through the various departments, they've got great offices of state. If it's going to be a Miliband-Rayner dream team, which I think it could be, because what would happen is he's popular within the party ranks. Yeah. And therefore, if he's her number 2, potentially penciled in to replace Rachel Reeves as Chancellor,
oh my word,
then what you'll see is a bedding in of left-wing policies. There'll be more public spending, more inflation-busting pay rises in the public sector, but there'll be more net zero too.
And I just don't think the people of this country will stomach it anymore. People are already at the brink. We talked 20 minutes ago about your weekly shop and how it's going up, how your energy bills are going up. That's partly down to Mad Ed, right? Yeah. You know, people are close to the edge with all of this stuff. They're fed up of it.
Most definitely. And public spending will go up, the debt will go up. So you have to worry about the economy. You have to worry that there'll be more net zero, because Ed Miliband will be the Deputy Prime Minister or at the very least Chancellor. And then you've got this story in the Telegraph from a year ago revealing that Angela Rayner will send a migrant to a town near you. She wants to distribute these people who have broken into the country illegally across the country, which is a very sinister policy. The advantage of these folk being in one place is it's quite clear the scale of the problem you're dealing with. If you dribble these people around the country, it can be very disruptive, but it's less politically damaging and I think more stealth-like in terms of illegal immigration and its consequences.
They are so out of touch with the feelings when it comes to the majority of people in this country, completely, both in the north and the south. This Labour government has never got it. For 14 years in opposition, they have been able to just chuck bricks at the Tories, just going, well, you should do this, you should do that, etc., etc. And you would have thought, and this is one of the most disappointing things, you would have thought, with 14 years in opposition, they would have thought, we need to get our act together, we need to have a clear proposition, we need to talk to people. And all they've done is protected their kind of like their rump, their North London rump, if you like. And that's where it seems to me the majority of these cabinet ministers seem to live. They're not living elsewhere. They might have constituencies elsewhere, but they, you know, pop up there for a Friday afternoon, do the picture behind a bar in a pub to say, I support my local boozer, and then they disappear off back to Westminster. They are so out of touch. And the only good thing I would say about Starmer remaining in office, if you sit on the right of politics in this country, is that actually it does a lot of favours for Nigel Farage and also for Kemi Badenoch.
Would Prime Minister Angela Rayner be worse than Prime Minister Keir Starmer?
Yes. I think so.
Wow.
I think so. I think for all of Starmer's faults, there is a bit of background there. You know, he was DPP, wasn't he? He made some dodgy decisions.
And he's just not as radically left-wing as Angela.
Well, he doesn't know what he thinks about stuff, does he? I mean, there was an interview he did a while ago where it was like, what's your favourite book? Oh, I don't have one. What's the matter with you? And it's just sort of like, do you like tea or coffee? Well, tea, both, really. It's, oh, man, have some conviction about something.
That's right.
And on that basis, whilst I think, and the polls back this up, he is the worst Prime Minister on record, at least he's kind of like, you know, the wishy-washiness, you can kind of go, all right, whilst this country is in a pretty bad state, he's not a massive threat in the way that someone who is a bit more radical would be. And I would argue that Angela Rayner is more radical than Starmer, given her union affiliations and the interview that we've just uncovered from 2024.
Most definitely. Listen, let's take a look at this message from Dean. My God, tax-dodging grooming gang admirer who would make a great Catherine Tate character is going to run our great country, Angela Rayner. Aren't we already the world's laughingstock? She'll swap her vape and rowing boat with a super yacht and Cuban cigar. Have more free houses than the royal family. And it goes on. Wake me up and tell me it's a nightmare. What a brilliantly written text that is. This is Dan. Come on, guys. We need to get behind Rayner and give her the confidence the country is with her. So much so that she calls a general election. Then we can get rid of the uni party forever.
That is interesting because I would argue if you put someone like Streeting in Downing Street, and we've discussed that probably is not going to happen now, Streeting and Starmer are not massively dissimilar, all right? You put Rayner in Downing Street, the argument to call a general election is a hell of a lot stronger because of her beliefs and her values and what she thinks is right for the country. You could argue that there's a greater argument for a general election because there's no mandate for Angela Rayner's form of a Labour government.
Well, that's very interesting. You know, if Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister, should we have a snap general election? Will she be a good Prime Minister at 6:48? This is Talk Breakfast.
I told him, sack Morgan McSweeney.
You've told him that? When did you tell him that?
I've told him a couple of days ago. I told him 8 weeks ago when I was sat in his study in Downing Street. I've told him on numerous times.
And what does he say?
He doesn't say that he's going to be sacking him. He explains the rationale for the advice he gets, and indeed the fact that he relies on the advice from Morgan McSweeney. There is an over-reliance on crap advice.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Joanna in Salisbury, who's listening to Talk Breakfast. Good morning, 6:51. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Hi, Mark. Can you use your imagination for a photo call? Angela Rayner in her clod-hopping platform boots and baggy green suit on one side of Donald Trump, and beautiful, elegant, tasteful Melania Trump with stilettos on the other side. Oh, this is a worry. Zoe in Lancashire. Good morning, Mark. It's not going to be Rayner, it's going to be Shabana Mahmood, unfortunately and undoubtedly. Sean Cooper, when you see how wealthy Rayner has become as an MP, imagine how rich she would be after a short stint as PM. And no, I don't know where it all comes from either. That's Sean in Bridlington. And Ian says, oh, you Murdoch marionettes, panicking at our next Prime Minister, brainy, tough Rayner. Well, Ian, I think, is a supporter of Angela Rayner, very excited that she's going to become our next Prime Minister, most likely. Ian, why don't you give me a call and let's discuss her merits as a politician. 03444991000. I'll put you straight on air, speak to Tommy, and we've got it fixed. Mick says, good morning, Mark. Rayner could have another tattoo to celebrate. It's like having Vicky Pollard's love child as a PM candidate. Just awful prospects for the UK's image, business and our children's future.
Should we talk about that for a second, about Rayner's image? Because, I mean, there's a few messages there that I think are really interesting. So, I mean, there are some people who just go, oh, you know, we don't know about certain politicians and what they're like. And, you know, you look at Starmer, there's no charisma there. Right, there's charisma with Angela Rayner. You might not like it, but there's big time charisma there. The fact that she's got a tattoo, the fact that she clearly likes slightly flamboyant clothing, the fact that she's being pictured in a dinghy off the Sussex coast of Hove with a vape, I wrestle with it, and I'll tell you why I wrestle with it, because you and I know in the 21st century there's a big thing about authenticity, right? Oh, it's so authentic. That is what you get with Angela Rayner. She's not faking it, unless she's a really, really good actress. She's not faking it. That is Rayner. She likes going to raves, she does a bit of DJing, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So part of me goes, that's kind of interesting in politics, because at least she is what she is. Then I hear the messages you just read out and an alarm bell rings, which is, whilst that's great in some ways, can you imagine her on the world stage? Can you just imagine her representing this country, you know, at some massive global summit? Would you want someone who is that authentic to be your leader on the world stage, running the risk that people around the world are going, blimey, is that Britain's Prime Minister? It's a tough one to call.
I think it would represent our downfall as a once great nation.
Yeah.
It would be a moment for the country. Looking at the runners and the riders, you've mentioned Wes Streeting.
Yeah.
The things that go against him is that he was a protege of Mandelson and also on the right of the party. Now, do you think it's unlikely that a Shabana Mahmood or a Wes Streeting win because of their politics?
I think if you look at the breakdown of the majority of Labour backbenchers, they are to the left of most, certainly to the left of Starmer, which is why they rebel against cuts to or slowing down funding for welfare, etc., etc. So I think Streeting, for the reasons you've just mentioned, I think he is damaged. I also think Shabana Mahmood is damaged, given her what she said and her rhetoric regarding small boats, which a lot of Labour backbenchers found utterly horrific.
Yes,
so,
I mean, her excellent speech at conference, which was talking about basically her life's purpose, which is to stop illegal immigration, was met with silence from the conference hall.
Stony silence.
I was at home cheering, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
I opened a bottle of scotch.
She said a lot. Did you drink it all?
I did, actually. I was trying to drown my sorrows. I fired up a big Cuban.
Excellent.
And if you've met him, his name is Fernando. But yeah, that was, of course, the problem, is that she might be a slightly less bad Prime Minister than all of the others, but she won't get it because she's on the right of the party. So that's it. So the question is, I mean, I do think, though, so what is the Labour Party as an organisation going to do? Because it's got a choice. It can elect someone that it agrees with ideologically, who's something of a political pin-up, like Angela Rayner, who has an enviable backstory, pregnant at 16, single mum, climbed her way to the top. So there's the emotional argument, those Labour backbenchers and the party grassroots to back her. But if they've got half a brain cell, they'll think, well, no, we want, those MPs especially, we would like to be re-elected in 3 years' time, and therefore we will hold our nose and vote for a more moderate figure and a better communicator like Streeting. That's the yellow brick road moment for Labour, isn't it? Choose someone that can win or choose someone that they love.
Yeah, and I think they're going to choose someone they love. Fundamentally, I think some of these backbenchers are completely...
They don't live in the real world, do they?
They don't live in the real world. They're completely out of touch. A lot of them have not worked in the private sector. You know, they've worked in the public sector. They might work for an NGO or a charity or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. But they never had to sit down at the end of the day and find out whether or not they're going to hit the wage bill that week or that month or whatever. So they will go for someone who they love. And in many ways, take a step back from this. For me, from a political point of view, it's staggering how a government got into, or a party got into government with a whopping majority, a massive majority, that they've squandered in a year and a half. And now we're talking about a change of leader and a change of prime minister. All right, some factors that maybe you can argue are not necessarily political, but they do involve a senior Labour politician. And it's just, it's depressing for the state of this country that we're now talking about this government unravelling as it is.
Most definitely. Well, I was chuckling while you were talking there, and it was out of context because what you were saying was very serious and important. But I got a message from Michael in Durham who said, great show, Mark. Do you know when I'll be able to move to Mars? I'll not be able to cope if the Ginger Growler gets the top job. Best wishes, Michael from Durham, brackets, soon to be Mars.
Yes, well, who can blame him? They call her Big Ange, don't they, in Westminster? She's she's got a nickname which is Big Ange.
Well, that's right, and then she will be, I mean, listen, it could be her destiny to become Prime Minister. Dave says, good morning, Mark and Duncan. Duncan is absolutely right. Shopping costs are through the roof. Bills are getting worse. It's just depressing. Starmer is a disgrace, as most of the MPs are. And I'm sat here not putting my heating on as the cost is too high. Dave, I feel you. And that's why I talked earlier about we're not going to focus that much on Mandelson. It's actually about the policies of this government, whoever happens to be Prime Minister. Rachel in Wales says Rayner is more of a threat. We've got a Chinese embassy, the Chagos deal, unlimited illegals, grooming gang scandal, veterans homeless, pedo gate, not forgetting Lucy Connolly and freedom of speech, digital ID, the wine-swigging, foul-mouthed, tax-dodging Ginger Growler is a pussycat compared to the current PM. Is this the best that we've got? The lot need abolishing ASAP. Do you think there is an argument for a general election?
I think if Rayner goes into Downing Street, there's a very strong argument, and I'd be pushing for it because where's her mandate? You know.
Did you push for that when Liz Truss replaced Boris Johnson?
No.
But that's probably because you had one Conservative replacing another, right?
Exactly that. Yeah. You have one kind of Labour politician being replaced with a rabid socialist.
Folks, this is not a drill. Rayner, likely to be our next Prime Minister. More from Talk Breakfast next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Past 7, top of the morning, Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. A big 3 hours to come. Big opinions, big guests, big stories. Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. And breaking this morning, disgraced Peter Mandelson has his London and Wiltshire homes searched by the police in a scandal that threatens to engulf this Labour government. With the prospect of defeat in the Gorton and Denton by-election and an expected bloodbath in the May local elections, could the Prime Minister resign in days? It's not impossible that the Premier will step down. If it happens, you'll get wall-to-wall coverage here on Talk. Could Starmer walk? Stranger things have happened, or a snap general election. Well, we'll bring you more on a number 10 operation in total meltdown. Meanwhile, the BBC licence fee has gone up to £180. Is it worth the money? Do you still watch and listen to the BBC? Let me know. And the word in Westminster is that Angela Rayner is a dead cert now to replace Sir Keir Starmer. So my question to you this morning, at 7 on a Saturday morning, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? What will she do in office? What will Britain look like after 3 years of Britain led by the Ginger Growler? Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? 03444991000, my phone number. So give us a call, and Tommy is taking your calls. The excellent Luke is directing our TV output. So if you want to watch the show, just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Or you can listen on DAB+, in-app and online. And I'm delighted to say that following the official release of radio listening figures, more of you are listening and for longer. Thank you so much. Join our radio and TV revolution. And as the saying goes, let's talk. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also leave us a voice note. We love our voice notes. So Dave and Dean, keep an ear out for those voice notes. Let's get those on air ASAP. Daily Mail, Epstein, the toxic fallout. Police knock on door of Mandelson's £12 million London home and remove boxes of evidence. Scotland Yard swooped on Peter Mandelson's 2 homes yesterday. Police probing allegations of misconduct in public office, raided his £12 million London house and his rented farmhouse in Wiltshire. The Eye weekend now. Mandelson's homes raided by police. UK ministers and officials prepare to hand over their messages with the Labour peer during his time as Washington ambassador. Police search properties in Wiltshire and Camden as they investigate allegations that Peter Mandelson committed misconduct in public office by leaking market-sensitive information to Jeffrey Epstein. None of this would be a story, folks, if Keir Starmer, Captain Braincell, had not appointed him as UK ambassador to the United States. The Daily Mirror now, Monster gets 40 more years. Isn't it funny how the Mirror are very quiet on the Mandelson scandal? Very quiet on a number 10 operation in meltdown. Monster gets 40 more years. Missed chance to stop Suffolk strangler. Cops given car reg day before Victoria became first murder victim. A woman who escaped Suffolk strangler Steve Wright says 6 women that he killed could be alive today if police had taken her seriously. Emily Doherty gave a description and the guy's car reg after he tried to kidnap her, but they failed to act. Just a day later, he killed the 17-year-old Victoria Hall in 1999. She said, "I was ignored for 25 years. I thought, what if?" Well, a judge has jailed Wright for 40 more years and he will die in prison. But that, I've got to say, is an absolute scandal that this young woman experienced an attempted kidnapping by this monster. She goes to the cops and they laughed in her face. They didn't take her seriously, after which several young women lost their lives. We need an inquiry into that one. Daily Express, Death Wish TV licence fee hike hurts us all. We'll be discussing that shortly with a former BBC star. And The Guardian revealed Labour ministers handed files on reporters. Daily Telegraph, police raid Mandelson's homes. The Times, Rayner, I warned Starmer not to appoint Mandelson. And The Sun newspaper, police rummage through Mandy's drawers. Those are your front pages. Live in the studio, one of the country's most respected broadcasters and journalist, Duncan Barks. Good morning, Duncan.
Morning, Mark.
All roads lead to Prime Minister Angela Rayner.
They do. I mean, there's been some briefing that's been going on clearly over the last couple of days from her allies or people close to Angela Rayner. And she was seen during the week in Parliament with her partner, who used to be a Labour MP. Sam Tarry, I think his name is.
Yeah.
And it's believed that she was very instrumental in forcing an investigation that means all of these documents are going to be released, which is a headache for Sir Keir Starmer. Now,
that's right, because the Starmer wanted the Cabinet Secretary to decide what material goes out and what doesn't. She's embarrassed him from the back benches and said, no, the government can't be trusted to mark its own homework, which is a slap in the face and an act of war.
Act of war, and it clearly shows she is on manoeuvres. I'm trying to get my head around the very real possibility this morning that we might end up with Angela Rayner in Downing Street. And it's interesting, I've seen some messages on X in the last couple of moments, this idea that we would have Angela Rayner on the world stage. And I mean, I can't, and I'm torn with this because, you know, we talked in the last hour about her authenticity and stuff, but I don't know, you expect someone who is a leader of a country who might be taking part in negotiations about what happens with Ukraine, or some other crisis that requires the attention of world leaders. The idea that you have Angela Rayner there, and I know how this is going to make me sound, fully tatted up on her vape, ain't a good look for Britain, is it?
No, that's all right. It's sort of staggering around because of too many mojitos. The mind boggles. Tony has said, good morning, Mark. Replacing Starmer with Rayner is like coming home to find your dog has found in the living room and your solution is to rub your own nose in it. And that's Tony, tax exile in Milan, likely to stay that way for the foreseeable. This from Bridget. Good morning, Mark. Great show. Will this useless government portray Rayner as a role model for young girls and women, as Robert Reeves was? Notwithstanding her tax dodging, I read that her personal life is also dubious. Wasn't her boyfriend a married man with kids? Remember him leaving one of her houses in the same clothes with a toothbrush poking out of his top pocket? What an absolute embarrassment for the UK. She's vile, says Bridget. No, I would rather the devil I know. I think Anne is saying keep Starmer. Good morning, Mark, says Sean. So Keith Starlin has finally pushed his own party too far. About time. My only hope is that he'll call the general election out of spite. Otherwise, we'll have Mastermind Lammy, the Ginger Growler, or Crazy Milliprat. Sean in Gloucester there, who's, I've got to say, absolutely nailed all the nicknames. Derek in Norfolk. Mark, I cannot understand why anyone in their right mind thinks that Rayner has the intellect or gravitas to occupy the great office of Prime Minister. Her as PM would be a new low for this country. Duncan, do you think there's any chance that Sir Keir Starmer could resign in days?
I was reading something in one of the papers yesterday suggesting that this weekend is really important and pivotal, that he may well be considering his options and thinking, well, is it worth me carrying on? Because I think the writing is ultimately on the wall. He's going to go at some point. He's certainly not going to last until the next general election, by my reckoning. So if you're in a position like that and you are wounded fatally, hold between the waterline, which I think he is, you might take the view, actually, I want to control my own destiny, so therefore I will work out when I'm going to depart. So there is a possibility. He often talks about service, so that might be lurking in his brain. I'm going to do what's right for public service.
And that would be the golden ladder that he could climb down, saying, look, I came into power to make this country better. I've been prevented from doing so, and therefore in the national interest I'll step down, which would perpetuate his self-image as a good guy.
Absolutely that. And, you know, that is a classic bit of spin, isn't it? And it's the clever way
I did the right thing.
I did the right thing for the good of the nation.
That's it. I won't cling on like others have.
Yeah.
I've always said it was country first, which is why I'm resigning.
You've not written his script, have you already?
I feel like a
speech.
The guy is so predictable. And I do. I mean, it's not impossible that there's an emergency press conference or a statement on Monday or Tuesday. I think it's unlikely because the guy is so shallow and wants to remain Prime Minister. What about he steps down? Let's sort of war game this. If he doesn't step down in a few days, does he step down after the Gorton and Denton by-election?
Probably not. I think if he's likely to step down, it'll be after the local elections on the 7th of May.
Okay, and then that could be a resignation the next day.
And I'll tell you why I don't think it'll be triggered by the by-election, because and obviously, you know, we don't know who's going to win. The bookies have their favourites or whatever. But if Labour were to lose it and he was to resign the next day, then you're giving ammunition to either the Green Party or Reform UK to say, look, we triggered the resignation of the Prime Minister. And that's not where you would want to be as a party. So I think he'll ride that out, whatever the result will be. But after the 7th of May, if there's a massive amount of Labour defeats, then, I mean, that is his most obvious time to go and his most vulnerable time.
Another major public figure that's facing a crisis that threatens to engulf the whole project. It's not the government, it's the monarchy, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. This is an issue that won't go away, because whilst King Charles has pulled every lever so far, including evicting Andrew from the Royal Lodge, stripping him of his Duke of York titles, his membership of the Order of the Garter, unfortunately Andrew remains his younger brother and always will. And now there are rumours that staff at the Sandringham estate that will now accommodate Andrew for free of charge for the rest of his life are going on strike and will not work for the disgraced ex-prince.
And who can blame them? Listen, I was in my car last weekend listening to you and you had a cracking interview with Andrew Lowney. The guy who's written the book, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. And in today's Daily Mail, across a couple of pages, he's written this piece. The headline is, I've seen US intelligence report that says Epstein reeled in sex-mad Andrew at request of Russian spies. And the whole premise of this piece is suggesting that Epstein was ultimately helping the Russians with money laundering. There's a suggestion here that also he could have been an agent, and they used that relationship with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as a way of getting stuff on the royals. Can I read you a chilling part of what Andrew's written in the Mail, which I just find genuinely staggering. So he quotes a guy called Tim Riley, a Russian specialist at Cambridge University, has delivered a pungent summing up. Putin could finish Andrew and the royal family anytime he likes with photos, tales and evidence he no doubt has on Andrew, is what this guy has told Andrew Lowney, who's written this piece in today's Mail. And they also talk about how they think Epstein got his money because he started off as a teacher. Did you know that?
No. And there's not too many billionaire teachers around.
He started off as a teacher, and yet by 2008 he was jailed for 18 months for soliciting prostitution from a minor, and then over the course of time since 2008 has somehow acquired a private Caribbean island, a plane and multi-million-dollar homes in Palm Beach and also Manhattan. And this particular piece goes on to say, I believe that Epstein, generally believed to be an expert in hiding money from the authorities, spent years of laundering dirty money on behalf of Russian criminals and kleptocrats, probably within the connivance of Moscow. So this is a must-read for anyone who has got concerns or has interest in this story, but about the links between Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, Epstein and also Russia.
Yes, and he was very, very good at using honey traps to ensnare and then blackmail wealthy men. And they paid for him to stay silent, and it's likely that the man was not a successful entrepreneur because of a great set of businesses that made loads of money. As you say, you're looking at money laundering, you're looking at corrupt cash that was floating around the place. And the issue you've got, therefore, the unedifying spectacle that the younger son of the King of the United Kingdom may have inadvertently been serving the regime in Moscow, and Andrew may have been Vladimir Putin's useful idiot.
I think that's a realistic bit of summing up.
At which point, the very foundations of the monarchy are rocked, are they not?
They are.
When you bring national security into it,
completely.
this gets serious.
It does. I think, to be fair to King Charles, I think he's done everything he could have done so far. But I do think there's an element of running out of road. What do you do next? I mean, there's nothing else to take away from Andrew, is there? I mean, the next logical step is he goes to live in another country and he becomes estranged completely to his flesh and blood and the royal family.
Is it a problem that he will be accommodated on the Sandringham estate free of charge for the rest of his life?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people watching and listening to talk at the moment this morning, they will think that sends out the wrong message.
Well, I think it's a big, big problem because it's royal property. It's our cash in the end, ultimately, isn't it? There is a suggestion from Andrew Lowney that the King will tear up that agreement to accommodate Andrew in Sandringham and that he'll have to go to the Middle East and a wealthy sheikh will take care of his accommodation. The problem you've got then is the possibility that Andrew will take revenge on his own brother and on his family. Yeah. It's not beyond the wit of man that Andrew could go to publishers and offer a book that will be entitled Andrew, My Story.
I think you're right. I mean, this is the biggest threat in my lifetime to the monarchy in this country, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I lived through Diana and I've seen the fallout from that and various other royal incidents. And I think this is the biggest threat to our monarchy at the moment.
It most definitely is. And I think it's a huge piece of good fortune for the King that Starmer's in the headlines at the moment and Lord Mandelson, because otherwise it would all be about Andrew Mountbatten
Isn't
Windsor.
that the case? You know, last weekend, this was a royal story, okay? Pretty much. It was just a royal story. I don't mean this I'm not being flippant because I know there have been victims of Epstein, but it was very much a royal story in the link between Epstein and Andrew, right? And now it is just spread in such a way that is almost unfathomable, isn't it? That it's you know, we've got a relationship here between Mandelson and Epstein that is currently rocking the centre of UK government, and there's more to come.
Well, definitely, and there's actually a very clean fix when a politician is in disgrace, which is that they either get fired or they resign, and that normally makes a problem go away. But members of the royal family can't do that. Andrew can't resign as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, can he? Yeah.
And from everything I've read, and again, Andrew Lowney's got some great insight and stuff, is I believe, from what I've seen and what I've heard, that the man formerly known as Prince Andrew still doesn't get it.
Of course not.
He doesn't get it.
Well, one of the reasons we understand why Charles ordered him out of the Royal Lodge prematurely, because he wasn't going to go until next week, but he's apparently already out. The removal vans came at 2 in the morning.
Saw the pictures.
And the reason being given is that the King was enraged at recent photos of Andrew following the Epstein row, driving around in his Range Rover and smiling or waving at people.
So here's the question. Is it arrogance or is it stupidity?
Well, it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? I would have thought. The guy he's got no self-reflection whatsoever, and he's not humble. He's an incredibly arrogant man. Royal insiders have told me that for a long, long time. He's very entitled, and that he thinks he's smarter than he is. That's why he did the BBC Newsnight interview, and he felt like he was going to do so well on that. And after it had finished, they were celebrating. Him and his team were like, well, that went well, didn't it? Little did they know it would be the beginning of the end for the man. What happens to Fergie at this point? Because reportedly she's homeless.
Yeah, I mean, she's not come out of this at all well, has she? Some of these messages that we've seen that she's sent to Epstein.
You're the brother that I dreamed of
and then
having.
going to visit him after he came out of prison with her 2 daughters.
Taking the 2 young girls to meet a convicted paedophile.
I mean, in what world do you think that is acceptable?
Yeah. In the end, I mean, do you think that there is so much damage to the royal family from this Epstein-Andrew row that it could bring down the monarchy? What do you think?
I'd like to think not. I'm a royalist at heart. I like the royal family.
Because it is like Christmas for a Republican at the moment.
It is, and massively. And it's hard to defend, isn't it, in many ways? It's hard to defend. I don't think we're quite yet at the stage where it could bring down the monarchy. I think if more messages and more dispatches come out, particularly regarding the relationship of Andrew with Epstein, and particularly of Andrew Lowney's piece in one of the papers today, where he talks about the connection with Moscow and Putin in Russia. If that gains momentum and gathers speed, then I think that is highly problematic.
Was the king too slow to act with Andrew? Because it's our understanding that Prince William is spitting with rage about the very, very slow response to this Andrew scandal. It's our understanding that if William was king, he'd have stripped Andrew of those titles in 2020.
I think he has been slow, but I think it's a generational thing. I think William has his finger on the pulse more so than his dad regarding public opinion. He's more sensitive to it. He's grown up in a different way. He gets it in the way that his dad probably doesn't, because his dad, like his younger brother, Andrew, has been shielded from a lot of stuff and probably doesn't have that connection with the real world that William does.
William gets it. Duncan Barks gets it.
Thank you.
Duncan, listen, come back soon. Come and do the papers with us. Come and present shows on Talk, because we love having you on this network.
You're very kind. I love being here.
Well, one of the finest broadcasters in the country. Talks a lot of sense, doesn't he, Duncan Barks? Listen, that was a great conversation, was it not? 0344 499 1000. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? What will she do when she likely gets the next job? Well, I'll put that question to a former top Labour insider next.
You've got a political system that is constantly salami slicing the amount of time that people are actually spending in custody. You have a system in disarray that can't seem to let the right people out or keep the right people in. There's a review that you may know about that was launched in November into the releases in error by Dame Anne Owers. I wonder now if her remit should be extended to making sure that people get released properly on time, and that taxpayers' money, as you say, is not being wasted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lisa in Northern Ireland has messaged the show. This is Talk Breakfast, 7:26. I hope you're all very well. Regarding Angela Rayner, says Lisa, I seem to remember an article about her a couple of years ago where she wrote to a shop about a pair of designer shoes that they hadn't kept for her on House of Commons paper, expressing her anger that she hadn't received them. Also for not forgetting to charge the taxpayer for Apple AirPods She's the epitome of a champagne socialist. How very dare she, says Lisa. Well, thank you for that. What kind of Prime Minister will Rayner be? Would she be a good Prime Minister? Who better to ask than a former Labour MP, now turned Reform UK supporter, Simon Danchuk. Hi, Simon.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Mark.
If Angela Rayner becomes our next Prime Minister, what will she do in office, do you think, Simon?
Well, she's very much on the left. She wouldn't be my cup of tea. And remember, I was in Parliament with Angela Rayner when she was an MP as well. And I have to be completely honest, I don't rate her in terms of her abilities. I think she would be a disaster as Prime Minister. And it's probably the only thing that's keeping Keir Starmer where he is. He's lost complete credibility over his appointment of Mandelson to US Ambassador. But many Labour MPs will be thinking, well, if the solution is Angela Rayner, then we'll stick with what we've got. That doesn't put Britain in a very good position, does it? But that's where we are.
Most definitely. It was only after she left her cabinet position that they watered down her very damaging, job-wrecking workers' rights package. So what will she do to the economy if she becomes Prime Minister, do you think?
Well, well, there are Labour politicians already who are supportive of Starmer, saying that the economy will tank if Angela Rayner makes a bid to become leader. They're using that as a way of convincing Labour MPs not to get rid of Starmer. And I think that's right. The markets will tumble if Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister. She's very much on the left. She has the backing of the trade unions. She's built up a £1 million campaign fund to try and become leader and Prime Minister. That's what's being reported. So there's no doubt about it. She's going for it. She must feel emboldened by the fact that Andy Burnham can't find a way back into Parliament to challenge Starmer. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, the Labour Health Secretary, very close to Mandelson. So he's damaged. He wanted to have a run at leader. So she will consider herself to be in prime position to take over. But it won't be good for the country. There is no doubt about that.
In the Telegraph a year ago, the headline was very, very clear. Angela Rayner, every part of Britain must take its fair share of migrants. What do you think will happen to illegal immigration if Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister?
Oh, I think it will be worse. I don't think there's any doubt about that. She's very much on the left of British politics. And the reality is that the public have been moving gradually to the right. So she's not what the public want. There's no doubt about that. And there will be, the good news is that there will be pressure on her to call a general election. If she does become leader, there's immense pressure on her to call a general election, because when she was in opposition, when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister and when he had to leave office, she was the first person to call for a general election. So she'd be considered a real hypocrite if she then became Labour leader, Prime Minister, and then didn't call an election, general election, soon after that.
Now, we're hearing that Rayner and Ed Miliband, of course, the man responsible for our net zero nightmare, could join forces to become the dream ticket to win power. What do you think the implications of that would be?
I could imagine that happening, actually, and one would assume that it would be Angela Rayner for the top job, and then Ed Miliband as Deputy Prime Minister and perhaps Chancellor. It's often said that Ed Miliband wants to be Chancellor of Britain, and he's very much on the soft left. She's a bit more hard left, it's fair to say. They might see that as a dream ticket, but for the country, I think it'd be very bad news. Is the whole agenda around net zero has been an absolute nightmare for the economy and for jobs in Britain. Promoting him even further, I think, would be a complete disaster.
Tory MPs in the past, Simon, have been very good at choosing leaders that they don't particularly like, but who can win an election. Labour, quite different by contrast. They tend to choose leaders who they sort of spiritually agree with and philosophically, but who won't win an election, like the sort of Michael Foot scenario. So what do you think is going to happen? Jeremy Corbyn, another example. What way is the party going to go? Will they be pragmatic and choose a winner, someone like streeting, or will they go for someone that just represents the ideology like Rayner? Which way do you think they'll go?
My suspicion is that they will go towards Rayner, unfortunately for Britain. I could imagine that. I think you're making a really good point there. I mean, the other observation to make is that they rarely change leaders. They very, unlike the Conservatives, who commonly change their leader if they don't think they're performing, Labour are the opposite of that. And that's probably why Starmer's been able to last as long as he has. But it is getting to the stage where he's lost complete credibility, and they will eventually make a change. Now, whether that's before the May local elections or after, we can only guess at. But I do think the end is very close for Starmer. Where they go into where the Labour MPs go, I'm unsure. They could, in actual fact, go for somebody even more unusual, like Al Carnes.
Yeah.
He's talked about. He's a defence minister. So he has a military background, not that well known, not that senior in terms of Labour's profile, but nevertheless somebody who would be a smart appointment for them, for Labour, because he can relate to people, he's considered fairly moderate. So that would be a smart thing to do, but I just can't see it. Somebody like Rayner, I think, believes she's almost got it stitched up.
Well,
the
of
big
course.
problem she has is the tax affairs, isn't it? They haven't been resolved yet. The £40,000 in stamp duty, and the HMRC still needs to rule on that.
Well, indeed. Why hasn't that been paid? Has she not got the money, or is she waiting for the final verdict from HMRC? Do we know?
I think she's waiting for the verdict. Now, some allies around her say that she's going to be cleared and everything will be okay, but it's still hanging over her. I mean, she doesn't have a fantastic record in politics, to be quite honest, but nevertheless, she's well regarded within Labour. And this is Labour politicians putting the party first and the country second. That's the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in.
When do you think Starmer could fall? I mean, you've mentioned we've got this forthcoming by-election in Greater Manchester at the end of the month. We've got the May local elections. Is there any possibility, Simon, that the Prime Minister surprises everyone and resigns in the next few days?
I think that's a possibility. There are some people close to him who are saying that he's really upset with himself in terms of how he's handled the whole situation. But others around him will be propping him up, won't they? And, he's been inviting Labour MPs to his country abode in the last few days to try and shore up support within the Parliamentary Labour Party. So he's still trying to hang on. But the pressure is immense. I mean, you've got Mandelson there, and there's more and more coming out about this by the day. This is the biggest political scandal of our lifetime. The Profumo affair, which is before your and my time, but we've read about it. I mean, it was gigantic and eventually brought the Conservative Prime Minister Macmillan down. This is on that scale, if not bigger. There's just going to be more and more coming out about Mandelson by the day from these Epstein emails, but also now, because it's been agreed that all the information around his appointment as US ambassador is now going to be made public. And so, there's lots more to be said. This story is just going to run and run. And in the meantime, the country isn't being governed effectively. Starmer is having to come out and apologise and give a report on what he did and didn't know. I mean, it's no way to do government. And yet, that problem can't go away until Starmer goes away.
Most definitely. Meanwhile, the Bank of England have downgraded Britain's growth prospects for the next 2 years. My viewers, Simon, are struggling to put petrol in their car. I just got a text from someone saying he can't heat his home because it's too expensive. People are going to the supermarket being rinsed. People are being laid off at work. Pay rises aren't happening. Investment is down. It's a hot mess. Before I let you go, Simon, just briefly, a number of my viewers and listeners are very concerned about the idea of Angela Rayner on the world stage. They're concerned she'll be an embarrassment. What do you think about that?
I think they're right to be concerned. Goodness me. I mean, that we're already the laughingstock over Mandelson and Starmer's situation. But, I mean, Angela Rayner on the world stage would just be a complete disaster. It doesn't even bear thinking about, to be quite honest. I'll be quite frank. I don't think she's the brightest button in the box, to be quite honest. I think she'd be a real embarrassment for Britain.
Simon, what a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you for the truth bombs. We'll catch up very soon. Have a good Saturday. Best wishes to you and yours. Simon Danchuk, former Labour MP and now Reform UK supporter. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? 7:37. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dan in Kent. Okay, folks, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what's happened here, right? Just to demonstrate. And this is the magic of Talk, is that you know it's live. I worked in telly for 20 years and it's all fake, right? Everything's scripted, heavily edited, nothing is real. What you see is not what you get. Here at Talk, it is real. And I've just been running around this studio. The microphone's on the floor. It's a hot mess. Do you know something? I'd like to apologise. I resign. And there will be an election to replace me on this breakfast show. Listen, folks, big response to our discussion about Angela Rayner. Will she be a good Prime Minister? And this from Roger in Dorset. Good morning, Mark. I'm astonished that Rayner is being contemplated as a PM. She has no knowledge, experience or qualifications whatsoever to justify the suitability. It's a huge job that needs someone with proper academic, organisational, managerial and or professional skills and experience. Number 10 would be chaotic, not to mention Parliament and the whole country. She's also a crook. It's absolutely ridiculous that she should be Prime Minister. Well, here's a voice note from Pete on the whole Number 10 scandal.
I think this goes much higher than Starmer. I don't think it was him that brought Mandelson back. I think someone else told him to bring Mandelson back, or Mandelson demanded to be brought back. I don't know if does Mandelson have dirt on people up and down the chain. We are never going to know unless names start coming out when Mandelson tries to avoid going to jail. I don't actually think he will go to jail because he will arrange it, or probably get someone to arrange it. In my own opinion, that is, that it will drag on for months, if not years, until this is all blown over, and then he'll come back and get another job in politics again after writing his book and making millions.
Oh, well said. Of course, they always land on their feet financially, don't they? Did you know that Peter Mandelson's house is worth 12 million quid? And apparently he's a socialist. You couldn't make it make sense, could you? Anna, with a voice note. Take it away, Anna.
Good morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. With all due respect, I think it's you guys out there that are naive, not Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer's decisions are thought out. They are decisive. It's just his decisions are cruel and wicked, and he doesn't care how they affect us. Let's stop giving him the excuse that these things happen because he's incompetent or by accident. He chooses to do these things, Mark. That's why he and the Labour Party have all got to go. It cannot continue. Not with Rayner, not with any of them. They have to go now. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Anna. Here's Dave.
Morning, Mark. Dave from Manchester, up bright and early doing my delivery job. Started at 6 on a Saturday. Regarding your question, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? I'm going to give more words to the answer than she actually deserves. No. No, she won't. That's it. That's all she deserves. More than what she deserves. She will not be a good Prime Minister.
And Dave, she will wage war against you. Why? Because you are a hard-working Brit. You're a member of Alarm Clock Britain, on duty at 6 a.m, delivering goods, contributing to the British economy, putting in more than he takes out. And Dave, I'm afraid you are not in the political constituency of Angela Rayner. What does she care about? People that work in the public sector with gold-plated pensions and the workless, those who sit at home on benefits, mainlining Domino's Pizza and watching Sky TV. This is Nick with some harsh words about Angela Rayner.
Morning, Mark. Nick from Loughborough. Angela Rayner is desperate to appease the Muslim vote, for whom the Green Party, under the lunatic Polanski, is acting as a Trojan horse. And this is extremely dangerous for this country. Have a good weekend, Mark.
Yes, courting minority votes is a big problem in our country because it's the beginning of sectarian politics and the beginning of the end for Britain. I'm glad you made that point, Nick. And last but not least for now, let's take a voice note from Lisa.
Morning, Mark. It's Lisa from Canterbury. Talking about Angela Rayner stepping in Starmer's shoes. What I don't understand is it shouldn't be that they choose who goes in. This always should be a general election. It's about who the people want, not who they want. And that's why there should be a general election. She shouldn't be coming. Well, nobody should be going in without the say-so of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Nick in Loughborough says, good morning, Mark. Rayner's lack of suitable credentials to run the country is irrelevant because it'll be the unions that are actually running the country. Well, that's a very, very fair and I think astute point, because if she gets in, she's got £1 million war chest. A lot of that will be from union barons. They will want their pound of flesh. Kevin in Stafford, Angela Rayner doesn't have the qualifications or experience to be the cleaner at number 10, let alone Prime Minister. I don't know, Kevin. I think that she strikes me as a natural scrubber, but it's all about opinions. Barry's in Norwich. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very, very well indeed. Barry, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister?
Well, just when you think things can't get any worse. Yeah.
It's true. No, I mean, he's like, bring back Starmer, all is forgiven. That's what we're going to say in 6 months.
I find it hard to believe, right? I was an 80s child, so I remember Margaret Thatcher, right?
Me too.
You know, how times have changed. But I can't believe we're actually discussing Angela Rayner becoming Prime Minister. This is the ex-housing minister who forgot about 40 grand in tax duty. I mean, could you imagine her, do you know what I mean, yeah, right, running the country? Do you know what I mean?
It's deeply worrying.
And I just think to myself, and I've always stood by these two things, right? If an MP moves party, there should be a by-election. If a Prime Minister leaves office, there's a general election. That's it for me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, right? Yeah. You know, I just can't believe this. I think the King should dissolve Parliament, to be frank. I think the King should be sitting there thinking, you know what? This is my country, these are my subjects, and this government are not governing the country. This country is not being governed, right? And it's just drowning in sleaze and sex scandals and all other scandals. Do you know what I mean? The King should say, look, enough's enough. I'm dissolving Parliament. That's it. We're done.
Well, I know. I mean, that would be in the national interest, wouldn't it? I think, Barry, we deserve a say, given the fact that it was the public that chose Sir Keir Starmer to lead the country. Barry, while I've got you, Susan has messaged the show. She said Rayner's sordid past will hopefully bring her down before she gets in. Do you think she will become our next Prime Minister?
You know what? In this mad world that we live in at the moment, probably yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, as hard as it for me to say that, yeah. I mean, I think if she gets this stamp duty stuff sorted out, I think she's a shoo-in. And as Ed Miliband as Chancellor, I mean, good God, the lunatics have definitely taken over the asylum, haven't they?
Yeah. He'll be Britain's first net zero Chancellor, won't he?
Oh my days! I mean, honestly, it's like I feel like I'm living in my own personal little matrix, and none of this is real. Yeah,
I know.
And
well,
anyway.
This is why I bring it back. You know, we've been talking about Mandelson, and it is a scandal that demonstrates the Prime Minister's poor judgment. But it doesn't really matter to my viewers and listeners. What people are struggling with, Barry, is putting petrol in their car, switching on their heating. People are getting laid off from work. The companies they work for are cutting back. There's no investment. Inflation through the roof. These are the real world problems.
I went round a certain supermarket the other day to do my weekly shop, right? And I was looking around and I was thinking, if my wages went up like this, I wouldn't need to go to work.
I know.
The prices are absolutely scandalous. Yeah, right? I mean, I just can't believe. And the shrinkflation as well, the things have got smaller. Yeah, right. You know, there's less in things. You know, at one time I used to buy a strip of 8 certain biscuit bars. Now there's 5, and they still want the same price.
I know, it's wild, isn't it? I was in a small supermarket the other day, and there was a bottle of Evian, a small one, £1.75.
Well, it's just mad. And I just think to myself, you know, these people are living in a different world to us, you know, normal people, you know, people who go to work and earn a living. Yeah, right. You know, I really am. I never was one for looking at prices. You know, I had quite a well-paid job, and you know things are going all right. But now I'm having to, you know, literally walk around with my phone out calculating prices. So when I get to the checkout, yeah, right, yeah, it's just crazy.
And it's all because of the policies of this government. Barry, call me again soon. You talk a lot of sense. Have a good Saturday, big man, and keep the faith. Because I will tell you, things are going to get worse before they get better, but change is coming. In 3 years' time, we're going to have a political revolution, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. Bring popcorn. Next up, the BBC licence fee has gone up to 180 quid. Is it worth the money? This is Talk Breakfast.
Hello and welcome to Talk Down the Local. Tonight, we're at McCafferty's in Epsom in Surrey.
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation. I think it's almost a plea for help.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it. Actually, I quite like Suits.
People coming to the pub and drinking 0% alcoholic drinks, they're still coming to the pub and doing trade.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going, but I have 0% beers and I feel
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? It's 7:52. It's Talk Breakfast. Here's a voice note from Perry.
Morning, Mark. I just can't stand a woman. I remember when she said homophobic, Tory, racist scum. And all she kept saying was how the Conservatives have had their noses in the trough for far too long. And yet, as soon as they come to power, we hear about Lord Ali buying her clothes, treating her. They're all the same, Starmer, £120,000 in free gifts, and yet he was accusing the Conservatives of having their noses in the trough. And, just not the party for me, I'm afraid, mate. And I would just like to say congratulations on your ratings. Thing I do like about you, Mark, is when someone takes the effort and the bother to send you in a text or a voice note, you have the decency to comment on that voice or text, and you talk to the person that sent in that text, and you just don't use it as a filler like some other presenters do. Don't even comment on when someone's taken the time to leave a message. Thank you.
Well, Perry, that's very kind of you, and I really appreciate that. And thank you for the really positive comments about our ratings. And there's only one reason why the ratings are up, and it's because of you. It's our viewers and our listeners. All I try to do when I wake up in the morning and come in here and I have my meeting with Dean and we make a plan is what matters to our viewers and listeners, what is important. And what is not important is Peter Mandelson and secret files and all that CRAP. What matters is your lives and how policies from this government are making your lives worse and your feelings about the country. This war against Britain, I'll be talking about that in the Dolan's Dispatch at 9 o'clock with the BBC, a national state broadcaster that hates Britain, that talks about our history being shameful, and the public have had enough. It's time to love this country. It's time to protect its values, its traditions. It's time to save its economy. It's time to fix Britain and make it great again. Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mark.
Now, Mary, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister?
Oh, God forbid. I can't understand how we've come to a situation where somebody who's a tax dodger is now going to be liable to be our Prime Minister. And don't forget, she also received £17,000 because she resigned and wasn't sacked. So that's all added to the bonuses she's getting.
It's true. It's true. What is it with these lefties? They always make a fortune after their political careers have ended, Mary.
I know, but to see a frump like this woman on the stage of going around representing Britain, I mean, she looks as if she's... her general appearance is disgusting.
Now, Mary, some people would say that the remarks about Angela Rayner, the ginger growler, her appearance, her accent, is sexist. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm a woman, but it's not so much that. I mean, she's just such a frump. Her clothes are awful. I mean, I'm just lost for words that somebody like this is in this position. I don't think she should even be in the cabinet. She's not a representative of Britain. I mean, if Ed Miliband was to become Chancellor, well, China must be laughing all the way to the bank.
Well, of course, because China are the great beneficiaries of net zero, aren't they, Mary, given the fact that we buy all the solar panels from them. And the fact is that because we're making ourselves poorer, that gives China economic power, all because of net zero.
Yes, talking about the economy, what things are costing, I buy at a time the 750 gram tubs of Lurpak.
Yeah, butter's gone through the roof, isn't it? So go on.
It was £4 a couple of years ago. It's now £8. It's completely doubled.
Wait. You see, I did a double. When you said £4, I thought that is an unbelievable amount of money for a tub of butter. And you said it's double that now, £8.
It was £7.98.
I cannot. But for how much? Is that 500 grams or is that a kilo?
750 grams.
750. But still, but £8. I mean, what is the world coming to? Mary, who can afford that?
I know, exactly, but I mean, that's just about many things, isn't it? But regarding Andrew, please, please, please stop or keep on bashing him. The man can't do any more. He can't go anywhere. He can't fight back. It's like kicking a dog when it's down. Let it be. It's cruelty now.
Now, that's very interesting. I'm glad that you've said that, Mary. Do you feel that he's been the fall guy for the crimes of others?
Definitely, because they know he can't fight back. And it's cruel. It's not the British way. We should be fair about this. His brother's done all he can. There's nothing more he can do. I can only assume that you, and along with all the media and that dreadful snake oil salesman who wrote the book about him, want the monarchy to go.
Wow. Well, look, Mary, I appreciate your pushback on this one, because it is worth saying that Andrew has been found guilty of no crimes. But I definitely don't want the monarchy to go down, because if we didn't have a king or a queen, we'd have some rubbish ex-politician as president. I believe the monarchy's fantastic, Mary. I cannot wait for the reign of King William and Queen Catherine. But do you not think that Big Andrew has brought disrepute on the country and on the monarchy?
Well, yes, he has. But the point is, you can't turn the pages back. What has happened has happened. So he's been exposed. He's lost everything. Let him be.
Do you think it's appropriate for him to be accommodated on royal property in Sandringham, free of charge for the rest of his life, Mary?
His brother's paying for him, and his brother's got an independent income. What do you want him to do? Live in a council house? How does that look for the monarchy? How does that look for people abroad? They say, oh, his brother's living in a council estate. What do you want him to do? He can't fight back. He can't do anything.
Mary, I really appreciate your balancing views on that. It's very interesting to me when folk call in and disagree with the conversation we're having and would say, actually, Andrew's suffered enough. Mary, thank you for that call. Do call me again soon. What do you think? Are we too hard on Prince Andrew? Is enough now? Should we, as Mary says, leave him be? Let me know your thoughts. 03444991000. Of course, Mary would be the first to point out he's been found guilty of no crimes. Is it time to call off the dogs? Is it time to forgive Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and move on? But so much more to come. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? This is Talk Breakfast.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, kind of that nowadays and age, all what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider. And whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A happy Saturday, one and all. Breaking this morning, disgraced Peter Mandelson has his London and Wiltshire homes searched by police in a scandal that threatens to engulf this Labour government. With the prospect of defeat in the Gorton and Denton by-election and an expected bloodbath in the May local elections, could the Prime Minister resign in the coming days? We'll bring you more on a number 10 operation in Meltdown. Meanwhile, the BBC licence fee has gone up to £180. Is it worth the money? Well, that's a topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in an hour's time. Do you still watch and listen to the BBC? Is it worth 180 quid? And the word in Westminster is that Angela Rayner is now a dead cert to replace Sir Keir Starmer. So my question to you this morning at 4 minutes past 8 is a simple one. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy's on the phones today. Book your place on the show. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222 or send us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Directing our TV output this morning is Davis. So if you want to watch the show, then what you've got to do is head over to YouTube. Search the word talking up, we pop. In fact, it's Luke. It's a cast of thousands this morning. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons. Dean Spencer is the incredible producer of this show. Tommy's on the phones. So much to get through. This is Talk. Don't go anywhere. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? This from Terry in Slough, who says, good morning, Mark. I wouldn't trust Rayner to run a raffle. Never mind this great country of ours. Well, to debate the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome into the studio two very, very good friends of mine. We have broadcaster and journalist Phil Dave and senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, broadcaster and political commentator Jim Dale. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Jim,
Yeah.
whilst I've got you, it would be remiss of me not to ask you about the weather. I don't mean the political weather. When's it going to stop raining?
It's not. Well, it is, but it's going to change to snow. So wet and miserable at the moment, and then cold and miserable with snow. Now, not snow for everybody. I'm going to emphasise this. It will turn progressively colder as the week unwinds. Snow for Scotland for sure. And it's just then whether what we see down, further north, maybe the Pennines, these sort of areas. But it's all in the sort of melting pot at this moment in time, not literally, but that's the direction of travel. So it's pretty well much the same, except it's going colder. So that's what we got.
So
coming.
Temperatures are going to drop, and the rain will stay for certainly the next few days.
I don't see any change in the general Atlantic push of weather at all for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, there'll be the odd day that's okay. Tomorrow looks a reasonable day for getting out and about. Leave that one to one side because it soon closes back in again. And as I say, it's probably more rain in the south, snow, sleet in the north. That's what we're looking forward to. right in the middle, aren't they? Come on, it's the Midlands. That's where
So
they are.
Do they get a bit of both?
Yeah, they get a bit of both. I mean, some of the Midlands is quite high. You believe this? Okay, I look after places like Stoke City and Wolverhampton Wanderers, the football clubs. And for them, I send them the weather as I did this morning. And yeah, they often get the snow when other places do not. So. We'll see, but it's interesting for meteorologists like myself in terms of looking at how this is actually going to come about. And we all know it's been very, very wet in Portugal, Spain, and I say extreme wetness, floods, deaths, the rest of it. Not just there, Argentina yesterday, that very similar. This is going on and on and on.
What about Northern Ireland, by the way? Because when you mentioned there'll be snow in Scotland, can we assume that Northern Ireland will also get more sort of snow?
It's not as high. It's the height of the Grampians, the Highlands, this sort of thing that really makes that happen. I'm not saying they won't see some snow. I think everybody's in that sort of melting pot as far as will we get any, and we just have to see, because snow is one of those fickle things. A half a degree in either direction, you don't get it or you do get it, and we're just going to have to watch the space. Really, I think from around Friday onwards for most of the UK, from around Wednesday onwards for Scotland.
Phil Dave, do you blame the Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the endless rain?
No, do you know, I think that's actually the one thing he can't control, thank goodness. So, I mean, there's got to be something. Look, it just is the perfect backdrop, really, isn't it, how miserable Britain is at the moment? So actually to have endless rain seems somehow rather fitting.
It reflects the political mood. However, is the prospect of Prime Minister Angela Rayner a ray of sunshine for Britain?
Oh, well done.
I see what you did there, but in my humble opinion, no. And look, I think that sort of when you have someone who clearly, regardless of what's gone on, I think that we know there is something a little bit fishy when it comes to Ms. Rayner's relationship with the tax system. And whatever it is, whether it is a case of sort of actually avoided or evaded, of course there's a great difference between the two. One would suggest that sort of anyone who is going to lead this country and try and persuade everyone to pay their taxes probably shouldn't have a mark against their name for tax problems in the first place. I humbly believe that Rayner would be just as bad, if not even worse, than Starmer.
What do you think? Would you like to see Rayner in number 10?
Well, first of all, there's no vacancy. Until there is, it's a no seller. So look, Angela Rayner, in terms of who she is, she's a northerner. She speaks as it is, a bit like I do. Very similar thing. So if it ever came to be, a little bit like Andy Burnham, he's very similar in terms of his makeup, his character. He does speak as it is, so does Angela Rayner, and I think that appeals particularly to the northern residents. So if it ever came to pass, then I think it would be quite an appeal. And we're talking about tax, by the way, and avoiding tax, or this sort of skiddy area of when you declare something or not declare. Let's talk about Farage and his house in Clacton that he said he owned and he didn't own, and it took him a couple of years for that news to actually come out. So
he lives there, and his partner bought it.
Jim, apart from anything, let's not deflect.
Scratching at straws there.
I was going to say we can't deflect. Okay, fair enough. No one's saying that Farage is squeaky clean, but we're not looking at the prospect of him becoming potentially the next Prime Minister, certainly not imminently. If that is the case that Rayner does, then that's my concern.
This is not tax evasion. Nigel Farage said, I've got a house in Clacton. Well, I mean, if Mrs. Dolan bought a house, then I've gone and bought that house too, because she's my partner.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that we can probably
Well,
it's not desperate. I mean, it's out there.
I'm not saying it.
It's a non-story.
It's out there in the
You compare that to tax evasion.
Well, I say tax evasion.
40 grand stamp duty.
Supposedly a mistake. She resigned for it, and that's the way.
That it was a mistake. Was it a mistake when Al Capone didn't pay his taxes?
There's another thing to say on
this.
What
about Bernard Madoff? Was that a mistake?
How are we getting to the point of Angela Rayner being even in this conversation?
Because of the useless Prime Minister we've got.
No, it's not a case of the useless Prime Minister. He's the Prime Minister. He made a mistake in terms of Mandelson, much as Farage made the same mistake in terms of giving the plaudits to Mandelson in December 2024. You can look it up. What he said, he would make a very good US ambassador, intellectual, etc., etc. These are Farage's words. So look, anybody can be lied to.
Farage. Yeah. Nigel lives rent free in your head, doesn't he?
Nigel Farage runs away from
answer.
me. You know why? Oh, those answers, all right. You know why he runs away? Because if we ever get into climate change, and I was in a debate with him once, and he said, please don't mention climate change, please don't mention climate change. So I did.
It's probably because he wants to stay away.
No, it's because he hasn't got the answers. And this is the point about Nigel Farage, is that he's got a very soft underbelly, really and truly. I met him many, many times. I've seen him in the green room, all of this sort of stuff, and how he operates. He's a showman, and that's what he is.
You know
Nothing
what?
more.
Actually, curiously, that's something we can agree on. I do believe there is an element of him being a showman, but at the same time, I also believe he greatly believes in this country.
Yes,
So
and
look,
Winston Churchill was a showman as well. And Margaret Thatcher was a showgirl. Can I ask you why we're talking about Nigel Farage, given that this government are destroying the country and are now caught up in a shocking scandal, the biggest, the likes of which we've not seen since the 1960s, and all you can talk about is Nigel Paul Farage?
Yeah, because essentially it's not just me who talks. No, I haven't lost the plot. Look how many times that Reform UK end up on Question Time. You know, Zia Youssef, he's not even in the polls. Leading in the polls doesn't necessarily get you a position, or shouldn't get you a position in terms of the limelight that they get.
I agree completely, because if you have a look at it, the way that Labour were leading in the polls in the run-up to the general election, they shouldn't have got anywhere.
Well, you're not happy that Nigel Farage is on Question Time regularly and Zia Youssef, and you've now decided to discuss Nigel Farage with the precious few minutes that we've got because he lives rent-free in your head. You're obsessed.
Well, I'm not obsessed because he needs the examination that the Prime Minister and others are getting at this moment in time. Why are we talking about Angela Rayner when Angela Rayner isn't a member of the cabinet at this moment in time?
Thank goodness, and long may it stay that way.
So let's get into this. Did you want a Labour government?
Did I want a Labour government when the election came
in 2024? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Are you happy with them?
I think what we're seeing at this moment in time is, and I've mentioned this before. No, it's called the transition.
Can we get you a coffee?
Let me quote something. Let me quote something from Bloomberg. Bloomberg. This isn't the Daily Express and it's not the Daily Telegraph, but they are saying productivity levels are starting to move in the right direction. There is, and you can feel it. You can see things happening in the economy generally that is starting, you know, call it the green shoots. That's exactly what is happening. And look, 3 years of this government to go. 3 years. I'm going to emphasise that. There isn't going to be a general election. Even if Keir Starmer was to resign for whatever reason, there won't be a general election, much as there wasn't a general election when Johnson left, and then it was Truss, and then
I bet you called for one, did you?
Did I call for one?
Yeah. When
not
Johnson
personally. Look, because I know how it works. If you've got a 400-seat majority, they had what, 100-seat majority. It does not happen. It just passes. The torch passes to the next person along the line.
Are you happy with Labour so far?
Look, they've made mistakes. Obviously, the Mandelson was a mistake in terms of what it came out. Economically and what have you, they've had to fill in a massive hole left by 14 years of absolute garbage from the last Tory government.
They filled a massive hole that they created.
And now what we've got, that garbage, is half of it is moved into Reform UK. It's not Reform UK, it's Tory Party too. Let's make that absolutely clear. Those people are in, including Farage, including Tice, and including others, they were all Tories. And you've got the worst of the Tories
how are we back to reform? You've got Nigel Farage Tourette's syndrome. Now, I want to...
Because I'll tell you why, Mark, because we come on this programme... Yeah,
I think you're in love with him.
We come on this programme and it's always about anti-government, anti-Labour, and I'm thinking to myself,
well, I think you should always,
but we were like that when the Conservatives were in power.
You should always be
not just about
Labour. You should always be anti-government, or at least pro-government, because they're the ones who are making decisions which are hurting my viewers and listeners.
Well, you say they're hurting. They're trying their best in terms of picking up the shambles that has been left.
How long are they going to blame the Tories for?
Well, I think you will see, Phil, that in the next 6 to 8 months, I think you'll see these green shoots turn into trees and shrubs.
Are
and all
you
the rest
calling
of it.
the governor of
I love the optimism, but I just think in the next 6 to 8 months, people are going to get poorer, more frustrated, and more jobless, and more state benefits.
Yeah,
I think it's unbearable.
Are you calling Andrew Bailey, the governor of the Bank of England, a liar because he has downgraded Britain's growth prospects for the next 2 years because of the actions of this government?
I'm saying he's wrong.
Right.
I'm saying he's wrong. There's enough out there. There's enough information out there. And if you look at, for example, well, for example, all right, I'll give you one from this week.
Have you been reading the tea leaves again?
No, I've been looking at the economic data. I do actually spend time looking at CNBC and Bloomberg and places like this.
Left-wing establishment media.
Well, why not?
No wonder
if you want to call them that.
What does Al Jazeera say about us?
But the bottom line is, I mean, you can either go Bloomberg, right, woke left-wing media operator, or the governor of the Bank of England, who is politically neutral, who's downgraded our growth
You
prospects.
say he's political neutral. Everybody's got a view in one way or another.
Well, he only cares about the economy.
Does he?
And he's downgraded. Yeah, he's the governor of the Bank of England.
Well, we'll see.
He's not a politician.
You know what? It's a bit
he's
like
a banker.
It's a
massive banker.
Yeah, he's forecasting.
Something similar.
Mark, he's forecasting, and we all know forecasts can go wrong. Exactly.
But listen, I mean, I'm giving you a chance because I'm a big fan of yours. I'm very fond of you on a personal level, and like a broken clock, you're probably right twice a day. But here's the thing, Jim.
Go on, man.
I think now's an opportunity for you to apologise for this Labour government, to say I'm really sorry, and to say that at the last election I should have voted either Conservative or Reform. I think you need to say that to my viewers and listeners, because if we'd had a Conservative or Reform government, that what we would have now is 2% inflation and the highest growth in the G7, because that's what we had in July when Rishi was in charge.
Why were you apologising for people's votes in a general election when they voted? You should apologise.
Well, I'd like to apologise for voting Remain in 2016, and I'm really sorry
that you voted Remain.
Yeah, and I apologise.
You and the dog down the road. That's about it, wasn't it?
I really, really regret it. It was a mistake, and I'm so glad that there were more people with sense than I that voted to leave, and thank God we're out. So I apologise for voting for Remain. Are you going to apologise for voting for Labour in last year?
Well, can I just say, in the last general election, actually, the general election before that, I apologise for voting for Tories. There you go.
There you go. Well, but there you go. Well, the apologies are coming in thick and fast.
14 years it's taken for an apology. We've been going, what, a couple of years? Not quite. So I will bide my time in terms of apologies, because I think sometimes you can push too quickly. The right and far-right agenda against the government is as plain as day.
Where's this mythical far-right?
What about the left and far-left agenda?
Well, there's that as well. Of course there is. Of course there is. You know, we've got an election in Gorton and Denton coming up, and Green are fighting very hard, etc. You know, so look, it's all in that melting pot. But the problem is, so is the economy. That's what we're looking at this moment in time. And I think the governor of the Bank of England is wrong. I think you will see when I come back here in a year's time, not that, you know, I won't get in between, but the point about it is that it does take time. It does take time to turn these things around. And we're now seeing it. I'll tell you where you are seeing it this week, for example, and this is maybe good or bad, but house prices have started to move up. That is an extremely good signal.
That's because of a lack of housing.
Not necessarily.
That's supply and demand.
Jim, when you say the governor of the Bank of England is wrong, does that mean that sort of with someone who's obviously in his position, who supposedly knows the economy like the back of his hand and what's best for it, does that mean that someone like your good self, who obviously being a meteorologist, who's obviously very knowledgeable when it comes to all things weather, does that mean that you could be wrong about, say, climate change, for example, then? Because that's kind of what the comparison is here. I can't really sort of see someone like Andrew Bailey, who's in his position for obviously a very good reason.
So why did Andrew Bailey this week not cut interest rates if he found that this economy is floundering? Because that is one tool that he's got, the one major tool that he's got that could change, you know, people's fortunes. We saw what happened with trusts in terms of interest rates going up and with the damage that did. They've been stable. Interest rates have been stable, if not coming down, and therefore you can actually see it. So, you know, inflation generally stable.
Stably high.
No, it's stable. It's stable.
Well, 3.6, 3.8% is nearly double the target figure.
It's double, but it's still in terms of providing, for example, pensions going up by the same rate, etc.
Well, tell Mary it's stable. Mary called me earlier and she said she's paid £8 nearly for a tub of Lurpak.
I tell you who to blame on that half the time, and that is, I've said this before, that is the retailers. Just as the same with
what? The retailers
oil.
Whose margins are less than 2%?
Well, you say that. Look, let's make this clear.
I'm sorry about those facts.
You watch the shares of Tesco and Sainsbury's and Marks and Sparks and all the rest of them. They will be going upwards as they have. You know, remember the FTSE's broke records. Dow Jones broke a record of 50,000 yesterday,
But that's
for
the
example.
job of a company to increase profit. That's what it exists
Not
for.
at the expense of Margaret, was it?
Yes, Margaret.
Yeah, not at the
Mary.
expense
Oh, no, sorry,
of Mary.
No, but they're running on very tight margins, the supermarkets.
Well, you say that, so is Mary, to be honest with you. And that's the problem. And one thing that the government did this week in the UK, by the way, is they put out I don't know, is actually a law, but the point is that petrol stations, once prices come down and the oil prices come down, they must also do the same and not hold them up. We've seen that so many times where the prices come down on the market and it hasn't been reflected.
And it should be, and I agree, and that's also the banks.
So that's a great move by this government.
And when interest rates come down, and I'll give you that, that's a great move by this government, no problem.
There we go.
But you don't believe the Governor of the Bank of England, who's a politically neutral man who's responsible for inflation in this country, and then you don't believe the principle of inflation. You don't accept that inflation has been high, which is making life a misery for my viewers and listeners.
Of course inflation's been high, and it's been for various reasons. One of them we can go back and blame Putin for the invasion of Ukraine, when oil and gas prices went up, etc.
But what about the inflation-busting pay rises of this government? Inflation was 2% under Rishi Sunak, may God bless him. It's now nearly double that under Rachel from Accounts.
Well, as I say, it's
time
not
to apologise.
It's not. Well, look, inflation is a kind of global thing. If
Sorry
you look
seems
at the
to be
United
the hardest
States,
word.
There's no sorry to be given at this moment in time.
You should apologise.
It will. Why am I going to apologise for something I've got no control over?
Because you pushed for a Labour government that has destroyed the pub industry and hospitality.
The alternatives
that has
were
doubled inflation, that has killed growth, that has exploded the cost of borrowing, which is higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget.
The alternatives at the general election.
Sorry, not sorry.
Mark, the alternatives at the general election were two bags of spanners. One we'd had for 14 years, and the other was a bag of spanners, and still is a bag of spanners.
A useful tool,
as opposed to this lot. But anyway,
listen, we love these debates, and I will tell you that half the country agrees with Phil. What do you think? 03444991000. It's all about. I keep calling Phil Jim and Jim Phil, and let's be honest with you, you're very different personalities, and it's a lovely, rich mix.
But it's the hair, you see. It's easily confused.
Of course, it is. Handsome devils. I'd like to have your voice notes on this. Let me know your thoughts. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? So much to get through. Keep it. Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
26 is Talk Breakfast, and I think we have to work on the basis that Angela Rayner will be Britain's next Prime Minister. So we've done a little bit of political excavation, and we found a story in the Telegraph from a year ago. The headline is a simple one: Angela Rayner, every part of Britain will take its fair share of migrants. Phil, Dave, what do you think will happen to illegal immigration under Prime Minister Angela Rayner?
OK, well, first of all, I make it very clear that obviously this is purely predictive, so naturally I don't know, so don't hold me to it. But I would suggest that it will probably continue to get worse because, let's be honest, Labour have been incredibly good at saying they're going to stop the boats, they're going to, what was the expression? Oh, yeah, smash the gangs, and seemingly hasn't happened. So
well, Angela Rayner likes getting smashed.
Yeah. I have no idea on that front, maybe. But anyway, the point being is that I personally believe that it won't get any better. If anything, it will get worse. And for her to say, or be quoted as saying in the last year, 2 years ago now, 2024, that every part of Britain will take their fair share of migration. We've actually heard this come up again within the last week or so. And it's really quite obvious why Labour are saying this and trying to push this agenda now. In fact, I believe they said that they want to make the countryside more diverse. Well, I would say hands off the countryside, because it is actually the last bastion of Britishness. It really is sort of like really the only remaining parts of this country that are actually, I suppose, a place to be envied by many. And I would suggest that the only reason that they are doing this is because that they know how badly they're doing in the polls, and they want to try and secure their future as best as they can by, if you like, inadvertently tampering, not inadvertently, advertently not tampering with the voting system by putting people who are going to vote for them in these rural parts of the country to secure their future.
Most definitely. Well, illegal migrant crossings will explode if Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister, won't they, Jim?
Not necessarily, no. In fact, they're going in the other direction as we speak. So Labour are actually doing a good job. It may not necessarily be making the headlines, but that is the case. But there's
well, where do you get that from? Sorry, we've got 70,000 illegal immigrants since Starmer entered office.
I think you will find, if you look at the...
It's a record high.
I don't know. I think it's the opposite way around. I think you'll find that...
Well, it's a high record.
No. I think you will find that the data, the statistics are actually going in the right direction, not the wrong direction.
Is this another person you don't believe? You don't believe the Governor of the Bank of England?
No, I don't.
Deny the existence of inflation, and now you deny the fact that 70,000 people...
You're putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying all of that necessarily. What I'm going to say here is, let's use some common sense in terms of those words that came out of the Telegraph.
That'll be a first.
And that is, if migration continues, and it will, because it's happening in every single country, and I could put climate change in there, but I won't, and therefore...
Well, you're allowed to.
Well, yeah, because it is one of the...
Jim, you can say anything you like.
One of the drivers from sub-Saharan areas that get 50 degrees and no water, that people think, OK, well, I need to leave to get a livelihood, a living for my family, blah, blah, blah. So there is an element of that. I'm not saying it's all of it, but it is some of it, without a shadow of a doubt. And that, by the way, will get worse. But the common sense in terms of what's been said...
You're right about that.
Yeah, I'm right. The common sense in terms of those words that Angela Rayner said, as quoted in the...
Telegraph.
The far-right Daily Telegraph, is the fact that if you're going to bring migrants in, you don't put them into one place. You've got, what she's basically saying is we've all got to take our share.
So what you can do is have potential rapists in every town rather than just one.
Look, if we're talking about rapists, then you know full well that the rapists in terms of percentage is 85%, give or take, are people who are known to other people. They're white, British. That's where it is.
Well, that's fine, but then we don't need to import another 15%.
Well, of course it's terrible, but that's the fact. The immigrant thing is overblown. It's used as a weapon against the government.
Would you say that to the mother of the woman whose daughter was murdered by a screwdriver? The guy's got 29 years in prison.
Of course, but even this week we've seen people jailed for the same kind of offences who are white British.
Yeah, but do you not see that it's a problem that people who shouldn't be here commit these crimes? That's actually an aggravating factor.
I think that's just an average of the populations that we have. So whether it be black, white, brown, immigrants, non-immigrants, you've got bad people in all of those contingent...
For sure, but you see, the thing is, of course, there's good and bad in everyone.
you're wrong about that.
There's good and bad in everyone, but we don't want to make it worse. So, where I have a major issue with this idea, again, of deflecting, that's like, OK, the vast majority of the bad people already live here. Fine, OK, but then let's not make the situation worse. It's a bit like sort of saying that, OK, I've got a tear in my shirt. Let's just make the hole a bit bigger because
so you're going to stand on the beaches. I say the beaches of Dover. They haven't got a beach.
I've made it very, very clear. Bring in the Navy. I don't care what anyone
and
says.
do what? Send them back to France?
Absolutely.
Threaten them?
Go back.
Do you think?
Absolutely.
Do you think there isn't enough threats out there at this moment in time? Do you think this government is
change
not
the incentives
threatening because they are?
No, but they're incentivising.
They are changing.
Change the incentives. Get rid of them completely. I literally would say I don't want to give a penny to someone who's come into this country illegally, not one penny, because it's my hard-earned taxpayers' money. I'd rather it goes to the NHS. I'd rather it goes on local services.
Of course.
I don't want to spend money on this.
Yeah, but this is the point, and this is going back to Farage. Why he has no answer for this as well, because he basically shouts from the rooftops. What is the answer?
The answer is bring in the Navy and protect our borders.
And what does the Navy do?
These people.
Tell me.
And if they don't listen,
Phil, tell me what the Navy's going to... I'm an ex-Royal Navy person. Tell me what that ship in the English Channel is going to...
Are you seriously telling me that you try... Are you seriously telling me that if you're in the position of an illegal migrant who's in one of these little rubber dinghies and you see a massive warship staring you in the face with guns pointing at you, you're going to try and go past it? Well, I don't think they would.
Well, what they're going to do? Go backwards? I mean,
hopefully.
This is the point, because there will then be a huge attrition between France and Britain in terms of where these people are. You've got to think...
Well, it serves France right for not tackling it better themselves.
These coastlines are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of square miles long. And to police those is nearly impossible, OK? And that's why
not
these
doing it at all is terrible, but at least trying is better than nothing.
I think you'll find
and then you have more robust control when they actually do reach the borders of this country by actually saying, sorry, you shouldn't be here, we're deporting you immediately.
Well, let's just put that degree of common sense in terms of saying, what the boat's coming across, you see that there's 30 people in it, what does the Royal Navy then do? What happens to those people when they say, OK, spotted, right, what next? Go on, you tell me.
Where are they? Where do you...
They're in the mid-channel.
Right. Well, then the first thing I would say, absolutely, is that if they don't listen to threats, turn around or else, then literally the Navy have to, I'm afraid, enact what they threaten.
Which is?
Either to...
Murder them?
Send off, should we say, firing shots.
So we're murdering kids and children and mothers.
I don't want them here, Jim. I don't care who knows it. So tell them, get out. They can save their lives if they turn back and get out. I don't want them in this country, and I'm not the only one. And I make no apology for that.
And then the French Navy turn up and say exactly the same. So the point,
fine, let them sit in the channel. They should have gotten the boats then, should they?
It's very easy to say send them back when actually there's no real answer apart from the big gun.
They're fine. We're bringing the big guns.
Hold fire.
Yeah.
It's 8:34. Jim is right.
Right.
Okay? He's been right a few times today.
Yeah. I have.
He's right that actually rising temperatures will see mass migration from sub-Sahara and elsewhere. He's also right that the issue in the Channel and the Navy is complex too. Because you cannot, at the moment, with the legal framework that we inhabit, turn the boats around. And of course, it would be terrible headlines if a Royal Navy frigate were to cause the death of people crossing the Channel in a dinghy. So
why? Because they're there to protect our country.
And there's a dilemma.
It would be politically unpalatable. So,
yeah, but I don't see that. So I tell you why I don't see that is because the Navy's job, like all of the armed forces, is to protect this country. And at the moment, we are not being protected. We are allowing people in. I don't care who they are, where they come from. They're not being checked properly. We don't know who these individuals are. And there are threats to this country.
That's the easy answer, isn't it? But it's a no answer.
Well, it might be snake oil, because I love the idea of the Navy doing their job, but they're not going to sink dinghies. They won't do it. It will never happen.
But I think that's a terrible shame.
It's not going to happen in a month of Sundays. Jim is right. Jim, however, I do have a much more credible plan, and it's as follows, which is I would exit us from the legal framework that stops us from deporting illegals in the first place. ECHR, Human Rights Act, Refugee Convention, tear it all up. It goes through the shredder. In fact, I'll do it live on the show if you want. If you can get me a shredder in, I'll just put that legislation through it.
And then what, Mark?
And then what we do is very simple. Anyone that enters the country illegally is immediately incarcerated. they go effectively to jail when they enter the country.
Do you not?
They're locked up.
The jails that are full at this moment in time.
Yeah, we'll
those
build
jails.
new
We'll
ones.
build. And how long's that going to take? And how much money that?
Most
Well, it's better than
gonna
not
be?
doing anything.
It'll take a while.
Look, incarceration in terms of where they
Lock
are
'em up.
now going, which is ex-services establishments, etc. I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
Out of hotels that Generic. Make sure we say this, that Generic was the person who made those things in the first
For
place,
sure.
made them happen.
That's also
now
true.
in Reform UK, of course, you
You're
see.
also
So
true.
all the blame of what happened in the past and the mass migration that we had, Reform UK.
Well, there you go. But what do you think of my plan, folks? You just build very simple prefabricated housing. Anyone that enters the country illegally is incarcerated and then returned. 03444991000 Talk Breakfast. More to come. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 8:38, and I will got to tell you that a big reaction to my conversation with two very good friends of mine, Jim Dale, broadcaster and meteorologist, and Phil Dave, who is a presenter and journalist. Sharon says we're wasting taxpayers' hard-earned money on illegal immigrants. That money should only be for the British people.
Absolutely.
Keep talking, Jim. You make more people want to vote Reform. Paul says, good morning, Mark. Great show. Could you ask Jim how many migrants he has staying with him? I'm pretty sure it will be 0. Amanda in London. Angela Rayner for Prime Minister. We're already the laughing stock of the world. Rayner would be the icing on the cake. Pete says Dale will still be blaming the Tories for the non-existent black hole in 2050. Listen, it's all coming in through thick and fast. Phil Dave is a legend, says Sean in Gloucester.
Oh, thanks.
Sean, I've told you about hitting
I've been called something very similar.
Well, there you go. Don't drink this early in the day. Listen, folks, a big new development, which is the licence fee is to go up to £180 in April. Is it worth the money, Phil Dave?
Okay, so funnily enough, I don't think this is as black and white an answer as you'd be forgiven for thinking it is.
Because you're ex-BBC.
The question, I am ex-BBC, and so are you, right? But the question is,
well, I don't know.
Is the money worth it? Well, actually, for what you get for the money, yes, it is. Now, the problem with the BBC is editorially, they are absolutely shattered. They are awful, editorially speaking. They have completely lost any sense of what it means to be completely neutral and unbiased. And that's what I have a problem with. So as much as I would personally like to see major shake-ups at the BBC to reinstate the quality that certainly I grew up watching, and actually one of the reasons that made me want to work there in the first place, I absolutely want to see that restored. But if the answer to the question is it worth the money? The short answer is yes, it's worth the money. Am I pleased that the licence fee exists at the moment? No, I'm not.
Is there a gap between the people at the BBC, you know, the managers, the presenters, the producers, and the British public? Is there an ideological gap there? Are they living in a sort of North London bubble?
No, it's slightly worse than that. The main downfall of the BBC, I think, in my humble opinion, is when the idea of DEI sort of properly was first mooted. They looked at the BBC and they said, oh my goodness me, and our national broadcaster is a disgrace. It's far too white and male for our liking, so we've got to do something about that. Now, up until that point, working at the BBC was a privilege. I don't mean for me, just in general, it is a privilege. They want the cream of the crop. They want the best of the best. That is the whole point of them and their existence, why they're envied by the world over when it comes to media, at least they used to be. And then when the DEI came along, they started changing the rules and regulations of how someone was employed. So when it used to be the case that someone had to work there for many years, learning their craft and building up to a ranking that meant that they would maintain the standards that we'd all known and loved, that suddenly changed when they said, heck, we've got to rush through a few individuals just because otherwise we look like we're racist. And that was the biggest downfall of the BBC, no doubt about it.
What do you think, Jim? Do you think it's worth the money, 180 quid?
Yeah, I think that equates to about 46p increase a month, 46p. 46p, I'm going to repeat that, OK? Simply because it's a very small, very, very small. And for what you get for that, let's just focus on the news, which I think what most people focus on, news or political programmes, whether they're biased, whether they're not biased, and I don't think they are. We've seen Question Time this week with Youssef appearing for the 6th, 7th time in 6-7 months. It's like, you know, a repeat. It goes far beyond that. You can look at programmes such as, for example, The Traitors. Why not? Because why should I focus on that? Because it takes in 9 million viewers peak in terms of, you know, people actually registering their wishes to watch what is a very, very good, entertaining
massive
BBC
hit show.
Yeah,
like Strictly.
And you can go across the board and look at programmes like that and just say, so let's just not you know, okay, a little bit of it might not be working here or there, but the vast majority of it is for children and others across the board. Is fantastic, and we should really be proud of the BBC and proud of its diversification, because that represents who we are both in London and beyond. And by the way, the BBC, for the most part, news side, is based in Manchester.
Yeah. Well, no, I was there at the time when they moved everything.
But I don't think the move
to Salford.
I don't think the move to Salford has made a blind bit of difference, because I think.
No, it has. I tell you how it makes a difference is they struggle to get people in the studio. Well, it's made a massive difference.
You got that, but also you can change location. The mentality is still Islington, North London groupthink, irredeemably woke.
Yeah, look, it's I love the idea.
100 genders.
I love the idea of thinking that, that's for sure.
Trump derangement syndrome.
I love the idea that sort of thinking the BBC is still unbiased, but unfortunately it's just not. I mean, it wasn't when I was there, to be perfectly honest with you. There were those of us who were, you know, taught accordingly and trained up. And I'm not saying that the principle of the BBC is to be unbiased. It is supposed to be. But unfortunately, there are far too many people there who are so safe in their jobs that you actually... Did you know that, technically speaking, you can't be fired from the BBC? I think there are very few things that are actually a sackable offence. One of them, by the way, would you believe, ironically, is not paying the licence fee. But the problem you've got is there are people who are too secure in their jobs, and there's no threat to them.
Let's turn it around a little bit and say, get rid of the licence fee. What do you replace it with? What is it then comes in to support the plethora of programmes that the BBC put out, both in terms of visual and audio, right across, not just in Britain, but across the world as well. And many of that brings in good money, good income to the UK in terms of their selling those programmes into America and other places. What then do you replace it with? Because what will happen is it will fall. And if it falls, what are we left with? With the greatest respect to talkTV, yeah, with the greatest respect to Talk, we don't want to be left with GB News. You know, that's the only thing, the Farage show, that's left, because that is what you're actually facing if you get rid of the licence fee. There's no other way of paying them.
But Jim, this might shock you, but I don't want to get rid of the licence fee. I'm not saying that at all.
That doesn't shock me.
What I'm saying is the BBC has got major problems at the moment that they're just not prepared to admit to, because they're so untouchable. They think to themselves, there's nothing wrong here, don't look at us, we're okay, it's all the others. They're not okay. There are major if you only literally have to look back as recently as, say, 10, possibly 15, 20 years ago. The standards of the BBC then, compared to what they are now, is absolutely shocking what they've done.
But I think
they have tried to cut left, right and centre and make savings where there aren't any savings to be made. For example, the biggest disaster I think they ever did was trying to merge the World Service News Channel and the BBC News Channel, which they have done, by the way, which is why a lot of the time... It's why a lot of the time when you actually hear them reporting about stories, they do it in the most bizarre way. They sort of say, and in England, well, we know you're in England. You're a BBC. Of course, it's in England. That's why they do things like that. Is because they're trying to appeal to every audience.
It's always difficult to steer the Titanic, and the Titanic is what the BBC is compared to every other broadcasting institution. So those problems that you emphasise, that you put, you know, there is bound to be
well, I would scrap the licence fee, but why do you think... What are you going to
replace it with?
What I would do is I would have it out of general taxation, and I would put normal people on the board of the BBC to make sure that it's politically neutral and that it's producing entertainment that the whole of the country want to have.
So get rid of the Tories that are there at this moment in time, because most of them that are appointed were appointed by Boris Johnson.
I'd have a people's panel,
but it's too entrenched.
It would come out of general taxation, and also it would see its budget slashed by 40%.
I think it's very easy to put that sort of view that
until
the BBC
a couple of years ago, they were paying Zoe Ball £1 million a year to play records on the radio and say it's sunny outside. Right, that's a scandal. That's actually daylight robbery.
Yeah, you've got a point.
And those middle managers, right, up to the eyeballs in the Colombian marching powder, right? But listen, look at us. We've had this debate on a channel that costs nothing, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say this channel costs nothing, but yeah.
Well, to our viewers.
I say to the viewers.
Okay,
sorry,
well, look, that's it. Brilliant for the folks, lads. What a great debate. Have you said your piece? Any other business?
I think so. Just wrap up this week. It's getting colder. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, and by the way, can we just make one small note? When it comes to, obviously, Jim, you've acknowledged that the next couple of weeks are going to be very wet. Don't let Labour use that as an excuse to say, we're bringing down the number of migrants, peeps. No, it's the weather.
Weather, there you go. It's the weather, stupid. Folks, thank you so much for that. And look, a politically balanced debate, which is what we're all about on this show. No one gets cancelled for their opinions, because I know that Jim has felt cancelled by one or two other networks that will remain nameless. Jim Dale, meteorologist and broadcaster and journalist, and Phil Dave, political commentator and talk icon. Much more to come. What about this? Will illegal immigration explode when Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister? That's next.
Can he continue and can he be trusted to keep the country safe? Because he ignored MI6 warnings as well. So what was the calculation that made him avoid, say there's a risk, but I'm going to go ahead anyway? That has to be answered. But I mean, the first duty of any government is to keep us safe. And he appointed someone who he knew. I mean, he's called the Prince of Darkness, for Christ's sake. I might call him Captain Underpants now.
Yeah.
But
Captain Dirty Underpants.
Yeah.
They're not very clean. Who is that woman?
Can we trust Starmer to keep the country safe?
No.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. The BBC, is it worth 180 quid of your money? Well, I'll be tackling that issue in today's Dolan's Dispatch in 10 minutes' time. Pete says, I refuse to pay even 46p to an organisation that shields paedophiles. Yikes. Lots of people very cross about the increase in the cost of the licence fee. Paul says 46p a month extra on a tax is not a choice if you want to watch ITV or Channel 5. This from an unnamed texter. If the BBC is so great, it can depend on subscription instead and compete that way. Why should I pay for a tax for something that I do not watch? Mandy in Surrey says, replace the licence fee with some adverts like everyone else. I never watch it. Christine in Bletchingley says, good morning, Mark. For me, the TV licence is nothing to do with the fee. It's to do with what they support. It came to a head for me in COVID, particularly their totally biased programme, Unvaccinated. I haven't had a licence fee for years and have not missed it or live TV at all. It's not difficult. I'm not prepared to fund their biased broadcasting. I believe I'm not alone. Christine, I do agree. I was shocked by the BBC's coverage of the vaccination programme and the COVID measures. Of course, that'll be a conversation for another day. Angela Rayner is likely to be Britain's next Prime Minister. Will illegal immigration explode on her watch? Well, a year ago, here's the headline from the Daily Telegraph. Angela Rayner, every part of Britain will take its fair share of migrants. So if she becomes the Prime Minister, is there an illegal immigrant coming to a town near you? Let's get the views of a very impressive lady. She's the organiser of the Braintree protests in Essex, which happened last weekend. And her official name, her stage name, if you like, is Free Speech Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Hello, Mark.
Lovely to have you on the show. First of all, why did you decide to be the organiser of the protests in Braintree in Essex last weekend?
Well, I myself was a victim of migrant crime along with my family, and I feel that the implications of unvetted men coming to our country is a danger, and it's being ignored.
Are you able, without going into too much detail, to give me a flavour of what happened in relation to the migrant crime that you suffered?
Yeah, so weapons were involved in the crime that was committed against my property and my family. There was a lot of police failures, and there is a court case coming very soon, and it's taken a long time to get there. But because of that...
Go on, you were going to say because of that?
Because of that, I feel that I have quite an understanding of a bit of a two-tier system that's happening across the country.
Most definitely. And I think there are some in the political world who don't understand that it's particularly bad if someone commits a crime against a Brit that shouldn't be here in the first place. That is worse than it happening at the hands of someone that's a citizen of this country.
Most definitely, and especially in my experience, you know, I've always been a taxpayer. Myself and my husband have never been, you know, arrested. We've got no sort of criminal background or anything like that. We did everything that we were supposed to do. We didn't retaliate, but unfortunately it took a significant number of months for any sort of justice to take place. And how are you bearing as well.
How are you bearing up in the aftermath of this crime that happened at the hands of an immigrant? What have you been going through emotionally since then, Shelley?
Well, at the time, I was 9 months pregnant, and I definitely suffered with, I would probably say, PTSD. I can't really remember the first 6 months of my son's life. It was a very troubling time, but I got the strength together because I don't want it to happen to anyone else. And members of my community are looking to me to help them and give them answers. And that's really what I want to do. I want to have good from this.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very, very generous thing of you to do, and very brave as well, Shelley. Tell me about those protests last weekend. How did they go?
It really was amazing. We had a lot of sort of local coverage and obviously media coverage of them trying to portray it as a very far right event, that, you know, that there was going to be issues, they closed the market. It was all very sort of dramatic. But it wasn't like that at all. It was an extremely peaceful event. There was actually only one arrest, which was from somebody on the left that was attempting to throw a milkshake on Tommy Robinson.
So an agitator, basically.
Yes, most definitely. But everybody locally and people that travelled down, they were perfectly peaceful. It actually was a really nice, united event, and I felt that people were able to really express how they were feeling.
The public have had enough, haven't they, Shelley?
Most definitely. I think people are looking beyond the surface now. They're looking at how things are being spent by the council, myself especially. Me and my protest team have been, you know, doing freedom of information requests. We've been finding out how they're spending our money locally. I mean, more people are waking up, and unfortunately, more people are having to do their own journalism because mainstream won't cover what's really going on.
Indeed, including the real cost of illegal immigration, because it goes beyond migrant hotels, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, where I live, obviously, with the Wethersfield Air Base, we have the largest amount of migrant men in the UK held in that base. And I think still a lot of people across the country believe that those men are held there, but they're not. They can leave at any time. They're bussed into our towns for activities. They can go missing, well, they can leave the base for up to 7 days, and the Home Office don't do anything until that time.
Well, indeed. And what do you make of this headline? Because it's likely, Shelley, that Angela Rayner will be our next Prime Minister, with Keir Starmer under pressure. A year ago in The Telegraph, the headline, Angela Rayner, every part of Britain will take its fair share of migrants. What do you make of this policy of essentially filtering out these folk, normally undocumented young men, across the whole country?
I think it's disgraceful. We have enough issues in our country that we need to deal with, and we need to get our house in order before we can take in anybody else. It's a disservice to our legal migrants who have actually paid to come here.
Yeah.
They love our values, they're here to support us, and instead we are allowing people to come in illegally. They've broken the law to come here. And also, you know, we are taking a significant amount of men in, and where are the women and the children?
Most definitely. And it is Brits of all backgrounds and colours who are unhappy with what's happening at the moment. This is not a far-right thing, and it's not about skin colour, is it? It's about people that shouldn't be here in the first place that have broken into the country.
Most definitely. Even in my protest group, I have Lebanese people, I have Indian, I've got Ukrainians, Polish, and it's really laughable, this rhetoric of racism. You know, you're racist if you feel this way. We're not. We can see what's happening to our country. We are, you know, there's plenty of money being spent on things for these migrants which shouldn't be happening. In my town alone, I mean, we're giving them art therapy, they're having cricket lessons, they've got their own football team. This money could be spent on nurturing the youth. You know, everybody says we've got a misogyny problem with boys. Well, let's nurture them. Let's give them some lessons with, you know, boxing, football. Let's do that.
More power to you. Shelley, how can people find out more about your campaign?
So we have a Facebook group, which is the official Braintree and Wethersfield protest group. I'm also on X, Free Speech Shell, and also on Facebook, Free Speech Shell.
Well, listen, thank you. We'll catch up very soon. This is Talk Breakfast.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, you know, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp.
Do you feel safe for her?
No, so that will have to stop. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, can't it, that nowadays and age, all what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 9. I'm Mark Dolan. Happy Saturday, one and all. This is Talk Breakfast. And breaking this morning, disgraced Peter Mandelson has his London and Wiltshire homes searched by police in a scandal that threatens to engulf this Labour government. With the prospect of a by-election defeat at the end of the month and an expected bloodbath in the May local elections, could the Prime Minister resign in the coming days? We'll bring you more on a number 10 operation in Meltdown. Meanwhile, the BBC licence fee has gone up to £180. Is it worth the money? Do you watch or listen to the BBC? 0344 499 1000. That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in just a moment's time. And the word in Westminster is that Angela Rayner is a dead cert to replace Sir Keir Starmer. So my question to you this morning at 4 minutes past 9 on a Saturday, will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. So much to get through, but we'll kick off, as always, at this time in the show with Dolan's Dispatch. Now, the licence fee officially goes up to £180 in April. Well, that's nice, isn't it? It goes up to 180 big ones. A lovely pay rise. Unless you're a train driver, a junior doctor, or are on benefits, I doubt that you've had a pay rise lately. Nice work if you can get it. With newsreaders, presenters and pen-pushing middle managers enjoying a six-figure salary at the corporation, paid for by old ladies who are threatened with jail for not paying this exorbitant, punitive TV tax. Crazy that we have to pay £180 for the great privilege of switching on our television set. Imagine if you had to pay a tax to turn on your dishwasher or your washing machine. Well, actually, let's not give Rachel Reeves any ideas. So what do you get for your 180 quid? A Britain-hating narrative, which shows that rewrite our history as being shameful and embarrassing. A Britain-hating narrative which sees breakfast TV presenters sneering at a politician for being interviewed in front of the flag of this country. A Britain-hating narrative which saw corporation bosses axe Land of Hope and Glory during last night of the proms. What do you get for 180 quid? Woke dramas like the TV daytime show Doctors, in which one of the nurses proudly announces that she's getting top surgery, which is a euphemism for the surgical removal of her breasts in order to transition her sex. Bloody hell! Whatever happened to Jack and Ori? What do you get for 180 quid? The desecration of brilliant franchises like Doctor Who, which is now a woke shadow of its former self. What do you get for 180 quid? Biased audiences on Question Time. And have I got news for you, with disproportionate loud applause for lefties and boos and silence for anyone that dares to be on the political right. What do you get for 180 quid? A vast budget for so-called talent, with, until very recently, the likes of Gary Lineker being paid £1.3 million to read our football results, or Zoe Ball on £1 million a year to play records and say that it's quite sunny outside. And until just a couple of years ago, nearly £500,000 of your money every year paid to the convicted paedophile Hugh Edwards, who, whilst being investigated for his wicked crimes, was paid by the corporation to stay at home and twiddle his thumbs. That guy, by the way, also has a gold-plated pension paid for by you and I. What do you get for 180 quid? An organisation that won't call Hamas terrorists and which happily broadcasts their propaganda, endangering Israeli lives. For 180 quid, you get a broadcast network which its former director of television, Danny Cohen, has described as institutionally anti-Semitic. What do you get for 180 quid? Eye-wateringly unfunny sitcoms with progressive storylines, worthy characters and an inclusive finger-wagging message. These shows, these BBC comedy shows, are about as funny as a fire in an orphanage. Go woke? No joke. There's no Only Fools and Horses anymore, no The Office, no Fawlty Towers. Those arrogant Armani-suited middle managers, ripped to the eyeballs on Colombian marching powder, can't bear funny comedies, can't bear balanced news, can't bear Reform UK and Conservative voters, can't bear the very country and the very people that this corporation is there to reflect, is there to inform, is there to educate, is there to entertain, and is there to represent. 180 quid every year is such a good example of daylight robbery, they should probably bring back Crime Watch just to report it. The BBC is an epicentre, a focal point. It is a locus of leftist groupthink, just like the civil service and just like the rest of the public sector. It detests Western values, it hates Israel. It's pretty sniffy about capitalism, it hates Trump, hates the Tories, hates reform, hates Farage. Loves open borders, thinks there are 100 genders. In other words, they think absolutely everything that you do not. Those who work at the BBC are a world apart from those who watch it and listen to it, which is, by the way, a dwindling army of viewers and listeners. Now, there are still some good things in their output, some good drama, some good documentaries, and at times, elite-level production value. And there are some talented people as well. Fine. But that's a bit like saying that even though your local restaurant is a horribly overpriced dump, at least it's got nice toilets. The licence fee should be going down, not up. A platform like this one, for example, Talk, lives within its means, right? We could be paid for by coins down the back of the sofa at the BBC. And this week's audience figures at Talk have demonstrated that it's working, with the great British public tuning into this show and others for longer and in greater numbers. And it's not difficult to understand why. Because if you serve your audience and seek to represent them and talk about what matters to them and let them have their outrageous opinions, receive a public airing, well then, with the best will in the world and with your fingers crossed, they will come back. But the BBC, they're not there to serve you. They don't see you as a customer. They see you as a cash cow, the useful idiots who fork out 180 quid every year. But the cash cow has turned a little bullish recently, with hundreds of thousands of people deciding not to pay the licence fee every year, which means that this draconian TV tax will eventually cancel itself out long before BBC executives have the courage to actually scrap it. 180 quid is an enormous amount of money. It's money that millions of people in this country just don't have, thanks to this wonderful, glorious Labour government, which has accelerated our economic decline. People are broke. They just haven't got that cash. And this hike in the licence fee is a scandal from a national state broadcaster that makes content for a tiny pocket of the population, resident in Islington, North London. The BBC must change or die, and the licence fee has got to go. Have I got news for you? The BBC is full of pointless celebrities, not enough masterminds, and is fast becoming Britain's weakest link. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. I say scrap the licence fee. Michael is in Oxford. Michael, welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Very well indeed. Michael, I want to ask you about whether Angela Rayner is going to replace Keir Starmer, but can I get your thoughts on the increase in the cost of the licence fee, 180 quid? Your reaction?
Well, I haven't paid my licence fee since 2005, 2006.
And why did you make that decision all those years ago?
Because I used to watch country... You know, I enjoyed the shows like Country File and things like that.
Yeah.
But they went so like with Ian Dale, with his global warming and all that rubbish.
Oh, yeah. So you feel that the BBC have been peddling an agenda, a political agenda?
That's not the only agenda. They are so left-wing. It's unbelievable.
And I'm just trying to think, 2005, so that's 21 years. Yeah. You've saved yourself about £4,000.
Yeah, because I don't have BBC, ITV or anything on my telly. All I've got is you. At the moment, I've just got you on my telly at the moment.
Well, Michael, that's a privilege and an honour. And what I will say, Michael, is it's a responsibility as well that myself and Julia and Ian and Kevin and Alex and Peter and the whole team, we have a responsibility to deliver for you. And I mean, I want to ask you, what do you expect from a broadcaster like ourselves or the BBC? What do you think that needs to be delivered?
Just honesty and truth. Simple.
Mm. And what makes you say that you don't get that from the BBC? Because many would argue, Michael, that the BBC is the most trusted news gatherer in the world.
What was that thing that girl Spring brought up? She done it on a fake CV through the BBC.
Oh, Mariana Spring. Yeah. She's the head of the BBC Verify, which is there to tackle misinformation.
She done it through a fake CV and.
Yes. She put some things on her CV which appeared not to be entirely truthful.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what the BBC are all about. They don't look into things.
That's interesting, isn't it? And Michael, what about the next Prime Minister? It's our understanding here on Talk Breakfast, Michael, that Angela Rayner will be Britain's next Prime Minister. She will likely enter number 10 in late summer 2026. Your reaction to that?
I can't understand how a person who's been sacked from a job can get back into a job and then get the top job straight away. Explain.
Well, it is very strange, isn't it, to actually leave office in scandal with an unpaid tax bill. Of course, it was the stamp duty tax, and yet return to number 10 because they've got a problem with sleaze. Make it make sense, Michael.
It does. That's why I don't... My dad, I'm in mid-60s. My dad always told me since I was a kid, Whatever a politician tells you, do the opposite. You ain't going to go far wrong in the world.
Michael, you're a wise man, and it is a great honour and a privilege that you watch and listen to this show, and it's your main source of current affairs news, and we wear that very heavy on our shoulder. And you've always got to tell us, and tell me as well, folks, what's working for you, what isn't. Always call us out if we get things wrong, if you're not happy with the coverage, because I'm here to serve and we're all here to serve, and it's a great privilege to do just that. Let's get some voice notes down. We've got Matt on the issue of Starmer and the disgraced Lord Mandelson.
Morning, Mark. Matt from Warrington. Yeah, I had a bit of a rant last week. Keir Starmer made me skin crawl. Well, you say a week in politics could be a long time. Dick Dastardly's popped his head up and found out all he's selling bonds, secrets to America. They've raided his house for his laptops. God knows what are on them laptops. Makes it cringe, doesn't it? 72-year-old man with a load of laptops. Oh. And Keir Starmer will just say, well, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. No, he's not. He's not sorry. Let's hope that some front bench ministers resign over the weekend and force this man out, and then let's bring on the rest and see what the jokers are doing. Great show for that.
Thank you, Matt. There you go. Matt says that Starmer is not sorry at all. Here's Elle.
When I bought a second house which was derelict, I had to pay my stamp duty. I had to pay the higher rate because it wasn't my main residence. And they said, and when you've sold your main residence, you can claim this money back. So how she's managed to owe £40,000 in stamp duty, I've got no idea. Also, going back to her previous scams, she bought her council house that she didn't live in, as a right to buy, and she was living with her husband in her council house. She rented it out. She claimed her single person council tax discount. Then when she sold it, she said it was her main residence and didn't pay capital gains tax on it. Then to get the money she's got now, that money was in a trust for her son due to medical negligence. So she's effectively stolen off a disabled child to get that money together for the flat in Brighton. She's an absolute disgrace. And regards right to buy, my daughter's got a council flat that she can't buy now because of her rules. So I don't like Rayner at all.
Elle, that was a fantastic piece of journalism in 58 seconds. I'd have needed 58 hours to get through all of that. You raise a lot of very good points, including the fact that she campaigned against right to buy, even though she herself profited from it. Classic lefty manoeuvre, which is to benefit from capitalism but lift the ladder when others want to do the same. Obviously, Angela Rayner will deny that she appropriated funds following the medical negligence claim for her own personal financial gain. But you're entitled to your view, Elle, and there's definitely, I'm not going to stand in your way on that one, but Angela Rayner will defend her position on that, push back on the idea that she stole anything. Bob has got a voice note. Go away, Bob.
Morning, Mark. It's Bob from Manchester. Lord help us. Angela Rayner. No eloquence, very little intellect. The glorified shop steward next Prime Minister. No. Cheers, Mark.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that, short and sweet. Adam has got a voice note as well. He's not happy.
Hi, Mark. Adam from Bournemouth. The question you have to ask yourself, how can we have Angela Rayner as Prime Minister, somebody that didn't pay their tax, and then she's expecting somebody else, like i.e. us, to pay our taxes, but yet she decided not to pay hers? You couldn't make it up, Mark. You really couldn't. Anyway, mate, great show, and get the popcorn out because I think it's going to be fun next week. Cheers, mate.
Thank you for that, Adam. And for now, last but not least, Christine.
Morning, Mark. Am I right in thinking that Angela Rayner still lives in her Grace and Favour house when she was Deputy Prime Minister?
Well, Christine, we need to look into that because she certainly stayed there beyond her tenure as a cabinet minister. And it's always been very murky as to where Angela Rayner lives. Don't forget, she had those 2 addresses in the 2010s, which may have benefited her council tax bill. We will look into it. Where does Angela Rayner live? No one ever knows. We'll get to more of your voice notes shortly. Will Angela Rayner be a good Prime Minister? And is she now nailed on to replace Keir Starmer? I'll be asking one of the country's best connected journalists next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to... there's something. I've done it again. I mean, repeat offender or what? You're listening to Talk Breakfast. And, folks, let me tell you that a lot of people are quaking in their boots at the idea of Angela Rayner as Prime Minister. Well, I'll be asking one of the country's best-connected journalists in just a moment whether she's a shoo-in for the top job. But here's a voice note from Wayne.
Morning, Mark. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Angela Rayner. The way she hasn't defended our poor girls getting raped by those Muslims and that Jez Phillips, none of them should even be in the Labour Party, never mind being thought about as leading the country. They're an absolute disgrace and they're anti-British. Keep up the good work, Mark. Have a good weekend.
I really appreciate that, Wayne. And another quick one, and this is Belinda. Take it away, Belinda.
Morning, Mark. Great show. Yes, the question about Angela Rayner, would she be a good Prime Minister? No, she wouldn't. Have they not learned anything from this past week? You know, forget that Mandelson was... OK, for example, forget that Mandelson was even involved with Epstein. Why on earth would Starmer have put him in the position he did as US ambassador with a history of 2 jobs before that he was rubbish at? Sorry, I nearly said a different word then. So they haven't learned anything from that. And now they're not learning from putting a tax dodger, allegedly, into becoming the next Prime Minister. Why? They're not learning anything. Why are they putting people with these dodgy pasts into positions of power? You can't have someone like that running a country.
Passionately put. Belinda, thank you for that. Well, let's get reaction to your brilliant voice note from a very good friend of mine, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Well, let me first of all have a look at the front page of your paper, and you've won the battle of the headlines. Police rummage through Mandy's drawers. A witty and sardonic title, but underneath that is a very serious story which could have national security as well as political implications.
Yeah, so yesterday the cops finally raided Mandelson's 2 homes, these big multi-million-pound homes. What they're searching for is any more documents that might show he's leaked sensitive information, anything that suggests he's guilty of criminality. And I mean, it is actually pretty astonishing now. We're really waiting for Mandelson probably to get hauled in by cops and directly questioned. But the big question next is he going to get charged for misconduct of public office, for leaking those highly sensitive, or apparently leaking those highly sensitive emails back at the height of the financial crisis, 2009, to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein obviously could have used that information to benefit massively financially.
Has the damage to the Prime Minister from the Mandelson scandal now been priced in, or could it get worse for the PM as the revelations continue to emerge?
Well, there's no underplaying this. This has been hugely damaging for the PM. It raises, yes, questions about his own judgment and whether or not he should have appointed Mandelson in the first place. Obviously, the consensus is now that was a massive gamble and a massive error of judgment. But, you know, this is one of those stories that drip, drip, drip will be on the front pages day after day, week after week. And it's a really sleazy, scrubby story, which now the PM has been dragged into. So when people hear paedophile ring, Jeffrey Epstein, friendship with Peter Mandelson, they also hear Keir Starmer. And that is horrific for his own credibility.
And Labour backbenchers are spitting with rage about this because there's no love lost between the left of the party and Mandelson in the first place.
Yeah.
And they will view this as a self-inflicted crisis on the part of the Prime Minister, who didn't need to employ Peter Mandelson. And Peter Mandelson is actually a figure from an entirely different political generation to Starmer. He didn't have any need to have anything to do with Mandelson whatsoever.
That's totally true. I mean, there's red-hot fury on the Labour benches this week. You saw that in Chamber in the discussion on whether or not they release these documents, which the PM now has to do. But look, there's a few things going on. I think the majority of Labour MPs are just so kind of fed up, sad, angry that Mandelson was appointed in the first place. Now these documents have come to light. That is kind of mixing with this already massive discontent on the backbenchers, where they think, you know, Keir Starmer doesn't know what he stands for, doesn't know what he's doing in the job, and they're starting to look elsewhere at possible leadership candidates. And then you're also right, you know, there are very left-wing MPs within the Labour Party who are smelling blood and seeing this whole scandal as their chance to really attack the Starmer project and see if they can drag the party and the leadership back towards the left. But it's not simply a factional bum fight in the Labour Party. You know, there's a lot of people in the middle ground, a lot of moderates, a lot of Starmerite MPs who are really fed up with Number 10 at the moment over this whole scandal.
Well, that's right. We had the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, giving the public and the international bond markets a bit of a bum steer with that emergency pre-budget press conference early in the morning, in which she gave the impression that the state of the economy was worse than it actually was. There was the Freebiegate scandal. Now we've got the appointment of Lord Mandelson, who the Prime Minister knew had stayed in touch with the disgraced paedophile Epstein following his conviction. So it seems like, you know, amid all of the sleaze allegations that dogged the Tories and Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer has said, hold my beer.
Hold my beer, yeah. It is a bit like that. And you have to remember that Keir Starmer in opposition made a big thing about Tory sleaze and really depicted himself as this whiter-than-white politician, this kind of white knight riding over to finally salvage grubby British politics from the claws of the Tories. Well, guess what? You know, we've been plunged back into not just one but repeated sleaze scandals since they've taken the helm. So this is more than just egg on Keir's face. It raises fundamental questions about how grubby is British politics, and is Keir the man to kind of clean it up? And Gordon Brown has been out this morning saying British politics is basically a bit of a rotten borough, and Keir Starmer needs to massively clean it up if he's going to maintain, or regain, I should say, his credibility.
Most definitely. So where does this leave the PM? Is there any conceivable chance that he resigns in the coming days?
Oh, well, OK, I'm going to predict that he doesn't resign. I cannot see PM currently resigning. There's pressure on him to go. Some of his MPs have broken cover saying, we've lost confidence in you, we think you should go. But I don't think Keir Starmer yet is teetering on the resignation point. Will members of his office go? Could Morgan McSweeney have to resign, particularly if his emails and text messages show he was in much broader touch with Peter Mandelson than so far we know? Then that is a possibility, I think. But it is true that there is massive amounts of leadership manoeuvring in Parliament, and the place is kind of thick with these plots and briefing wars and backbiting as the kind of pretenders, the young Turks hoping to take the Labour throne off Keir Starmer, jostle for position. And the big two we're looking at now, Andy Burnham's out the frame, is Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? What about the timeline? So it's not impossible but unlikely the PM resigns in the days ahead. He could go after the by-election in Greater Manchester at the end of this month or after May. Which of those two scenarios is more likely?
I think we're still looking post-May. There's a few reasons. First of all, Downing Street have to themselves release their own Mandelson files, as it were. So we've had the release of the Epstein files in America, which has plunged this scandal onto our front pages. But the government have agreed they're going to upload all of these documents, emails, text messages between Peter Mandelson and Downing Street. Now, that's going to take time, probably weeks, maybe even months, to comb through to decide what's a national security risk and what isn't, and upload. So I think we're probably going to see them emerge before we get those final heads rolling over the scandal. Then you mentioned the by-election at the end of the month. We've got the local elections in May. If I was one of these people trying or thinking about trying to become Prime Minister and take the crown off Keir Starmer, I wouldn't want to move while this scandal's on the front pages and while those elections loom directly ahead. So I think it's in everyone's interests for it to go a bit longer. But I think PM's credibility with his backbenchers, his popularity with the public is pretty shredded, and it's going to take, you know, a massive overhaul to regain that now.
It would take a brave man or woman to bet on Starmer being Prime Minister at Christmas, wouldn't it?
Yeah, or leading them into the next election. I mean, a lot of the thing that's keeping him in number 10 is it's very hard to get rid of a Labour leader. Just logistically, it's quite complicated. You need to have a lot of support. But I think the kind of sad truth for Starmer and his aides and his project is that they seem to have squandered that goodwill, that support that they did have. And as I say, his credibility is pretty short.
Now, do the Labour backbenchers and the party faithful, if there was a leadership election, do they vote with their head and a talented communicator like Wes Streeting on the right of the party, or do they vote with their heart and go for Big Ange? I mean, this is the million-dollar question. At the moment, it looks like Angela's ahead with the members, and she's always been quite a darling of the members, right? You know, they love her personal backstory. She's, you know, even now she's not deputy leader. She's out doing the circuit, speaking at their after-dinner events, being at party fundraisers, pressing the flesh. That's the kind of thing you have to do when you want to get their votes. And she's got £1 million in the kitty, apparently. Apparently she's got £1 million in the kitty, which is a lot of money that hopefully she'll be declaring. You have to declare that money. But the but look, the big problem with Angela Rayner, and Labour MPs will know this, is that she is entangled in her own sleaze scandal. She didn't pay full tax on her flat. She's still paying that back. HMRC is still investigating. Do you replace one sleaze scandal-ridden PM with another? That does seem a massive gamble. And remember, she moved out of her constituency home all the way to that flat in Hove, the south coast. So I do think there'll be more questions about her if she makes this big comeback. Well, yes, I was asked by one of my the Grace and Flavour property. It's your understanding that.
No, that comes with the job in cabinet.
She was in there for a while, wasn't she?
I think she was, but I'm sure she's moved out. Should have moved out of Admiralty House by now.
Yeah, so she's perhaps the front runner at this stage. And do we know the timeline for the HMRC verdict, their ruling on her stamp duty? We
don't. I mean, this is the big mystery. When do they rule? How do they make it public? Will she get totally exonerated? Not totally exonerated, because obviously she's coughed herself to the fact that she did wrong, but will it find kind of more questions and more, for her to answer, or will it say pay us the money back and you can move on? But it's in Angela's interest for that to be done as quickly as possible now, because I think until she sheds that, there's going to be big questions over whether or not she could be leader. And on Wes, you know, excellent communicator, a man who has made no secret of his ambition to lead the Labour Party. The big question with Wes, well, there's a couple now. Firstly, is he too right-wing, too Blairite to lead the party? You know, seen as a real reformer on the Blairite wing. Also, you know, he was mates with Mandelson, and Mandelson has been out campaigning with him. These are photographs that I imagine Wes quite wants to forget now. But his relationship with Mandelson does appear to be much closer than Angela's. And could he take a blow from these Mandelson revelations?
Kate, brilliant to see you. And I know you've got a very busy 24 hours ahead of you. Cannot wait to get my hands on tomorrow's Sun on Sunday. Its political editor is Kate Ferguson. That paper is #1 for politics scoops, let me tell you. So much more to come. Prince Andrew, formerly, of course, Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The headlines get worse. I'll speak to a journalist that knows the royal family better than anyone next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It most certainly is talk. What about the idea of Angela Rayner replacing Keir Starmer as Prime Minister? It's 9:38. Here's a voice note from Robert.
Good morning, Mark. Fab show, great discussion. This is Robert from London. I think we should let Miliband become Prime Minister because it will be, you know, all over within a year by the time he's finished, and there will be a general election because the country will be destroyed within overnight if he was Prime Minister with all his net zero stuff and his carry on. God, so yeah, bring it on. Let's just sit back and watch because I can assure you now there will be a general election within a year if he became Prime Minister. Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Thank you for that. Here's a voice note from Ian. Take it away, Ian.
Hi, Mark. It's Ian from East Grinstead. Your political advisor or whatever, the guy from the Labour Party, he's not the only first one I've heard trying to deflect Starmer's ineptitude and making comparisons with Farage. And we're not talking about Farage, are we? We're talking about Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer. They need to just face up and stop trying to gaslight people. Tell the truth, for God's sake.
Ian, thank you for that. Well, we will always fight against gaslighting on this show. As my earlier caller said when we spoke just after Dolan's dispatch, you know, what is our duty here at Talk? And I asked him that. I said, what do you need as our audience? And he said the truth, and that's what we will always pursue. What about the truth of the royal family, the state of the monarchy? Front page, page 8 of the Daily Mail newspaper, the inside story of Andrew's 9-day goodbye visit to Epstein in New York. The bad headlines keep coming. Let's get reaction from esteemed royal expert and biographer Ingrid Seward. Good morning, Ingrid.
Good morning.
Privileged to have you on the show. The bad headlines.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Well, most definitely, because as I mentioned going into the break, you know the royal family very well. You've been reporting on the royals for many, many years now. Do you think that the damage to the monarchy has essentially been priced in from the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor story, or is there more damage to come?
Well, I think because these files are so numerous, there's, and it takes even, the brightest journalists using AI, it takes a while to go through them. I think there probably will be more to come because, they're just so numerous. So it's not something that you can do very, very quickly. And these stories this morning, they're just even more surprising. So it's a steady drip, 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 but it's a very steady drip. And I think it is damaging to the monarchy. But when you look at, as you just have been, at our politicians, you think, well, certainly thank goodness that we don't have one of them as our head of state. At least we have King Charles, who is reliable and stable, and we know him. And we know that he's not going to do anything to destroy this country. He's going to try and help it. So I think that is really the situation, is that we have the monarchy. They're above politics. I know they can't do anything, but they're above politics. And it's, at least we know that there's one thing that is stable in this country at the moment.
I completely agree. I think the King is a steady hand at the tiller, and I look forward with anticipation, Ingrid, to the reign of King William and Queen Catherine as well. I think the future's bright for the monarchy, but you've got this isolated, hugely problematic story of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and the issue that the King has, Ingrid, is there are no more levers to pull. He's no longer Duke of York. He lost HRH in 2020 with the Virginia Giuffre payout. He's lost his membership of the Order of the Garter. He can't cease to be the younger brother of the King. There's not much more Charles can do.
There really isn't much more Charles can do. And also there probably isn't much more he wants to do. It is his brother. And he realises that he's just got to try and keep Andrew quiet and out of the way, because the minute he springs up, as he did the other day, riding around the Windsor estate, when I think he was already meant to be at Sandringham, It's very difficult for the monarchy. King Charles was out doing an official royal engagement, and then people ask him about Andrew, which of course that they're going to, in this era, people don't keep quiet. So it's all very, very sticky, I'd say, and more than embarrassing. It's difficult, but there's not a great deal more he can do.
Is there any chance that the King might consider tearing up his agreement with Andrew to accommodate him on the Sandringham estate rent-free for the rest of his life?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the King is not an unkind man, as we know, and he's very generous. And of course he wants to look after his brother, because his brother is at least contained on the Sandringham estate under the King's largesse, if you like, because he's paying for him. I mean, it's possible that he'll go to Abu Dhabi or one of the Arab states.
Yeah.
He could easily go there. But I don't think permanently. I think the Sandringham estate will be his permanent home for the foreseeable future. But I'm not saying he will necessarily be there all the time.
Will the Andrew scandal ever fall away, or does it risk becoming the sort of main sort of talking point of Charles's reign? Does Charles's legacy risk being tainted by this story until the end?
I think it will always be mentioned. And it's certainly been going for a long, long time. I really feel that I don't think Charles's reign will be tainted by it. I think it'll be mentioned, but it's actually not anything to do with Charles, the way his brother behaves. And historically, if you look at the monarchy historically, there's always been a lot of bad brothers.
And it didn't happen on Charles's watch per se.
No, it didn't. It happened on, of course, the late Queen's watch, and we know from everything that we understand and we hear is that she absolutely adored Andrew. And at the end of her life, he was very, very good to her. He was the one that always, I know he was doing nothing and he was nearby, but he went and had tea with his mum. He sat and watched television with her, and they just adored each other. And I think that was very nice for the rest of the family to know that Andrew was there for her. So there's a lot of things to put in the mix, if you see what I mean. When you read the papers, you're looking at it from just one angle, which is we're all very, very angry with him. But there is another side to him, of course there is. And he is, it sounds strange me say it, but I am going to say it, that he is a kind person. And he was very kind to William and Harry when their mother died. And I don't think William is being portrayed exactly correctly at the moment. I think that William is stepping back from this. I don't think he's stepping forward. And it's up to his brother to deal with it. It's up to the King to deal with Andrew, not to drag his son into it as well.
What do you mean when you say that William is stepping backwards? Do you mean that William sees this as a hot mess that he doesn't want to be associated with?
Well, I'm sure he sees that. I'm sure he thinks that. And what can he do? What can William do that his father can't do? So if you look at it logically, there is no point in William being involved with this. I mean, he can say what he feels, but there's no point in him being involved because it's something his father is dealing with.
And we know that William has no patience with his uncle, given his behaviour and the bad headlines. And we saw that footage last year of the Prince of Wales and Andrew leaving the church. I think it was after the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, and Andrew was trying to engage with his nephew, the Prince of Wales, and William wasn't having any of it.
Well, that's how it looked, but we don't truly know. I think what actually was happening was the coffin was going past, and nobody, and everybody wanted to look, sort of very thoughtful and as the Duchess's, somber's the word, yes, absolutely, as the Duchess's coffin. So there's always a little twist to everything, and William seems to get the blame for being the bad nephew, if you like. But I think he's got enough going on in his own life at the moment not to be dragged into this, and I don't think Charles would do that to his son.
You're right, and it's not his mess to sort out. Ingrid, I took a call earlier from Mary in Hemel Hempstead, and she said This man has suffered enough. He's been found guilty of no crimes. It's trial by media. He's being vilified. He's being demonised. And Mary just said, leave it. Leave the man in peace. Do you have any sympathy with that view?
Well, I do. I think a lot of people feel that now. When you read a lot of the comments that people are making, particularly in the Telegraph things, a lot of them are saying, you know, leave him alone. You know, just, you know, he's been vilified and his life is destroyed. So let's just leave him alone. But, you know, that's not how we work, really, is it? We just don't leave people alone. And of course, Andrew is very, very newsworthy. But I think that if Andrew is sensible enough to keep out of public sight, then he will be making his own life a bit easier.
Does he still have the support and love of his daughters, do you think, Ingrid, Beatrice and Eugenie? They're torn, aren't they? Because I think instinctively they do love their parents, but on the other hand, they're quite fond of those royal titles and therefore wouldn't want to be seen to be too close to their tainted parents.
Well, that's I quite agree with you, Mark, on that, because they both got jobs to do, and of course their life gets tainted by their father. And I think particularly with Eugenie, when this scandal really blew up, she worked for a company called Hauser & Wirth, which is an international art dealers, one of the best in the world. And of course it taints her and it taints them. And also Jack, her husband, was losing clients because of it. So they had to stand back, and I presume it was the same for Beatrice. Doesn't mean they don't love their father. I think they're just standing back from it. There's nothing else they can do.
Most definitely. And what about Sarah Ferguson? It's been reported, Ingrid, that she's quite low mentally and technically homeless at the moment, or about to be.
I really feel sort of shocked by Fergie. I mean, I've known Fergie for years and years, although I haven't seen her recently. And what we're reading is not the girl I knew. And I do feel rather, actually, I do feel a lot of sympathy for her. She's been greedy and stupid, but she hasn't committed a crime. She's just been, but I do feel she's very responsible for what's happened to her husband.
Well, she's quite a damaged person, isn't she? She came from a chaotic domestic setting, divorce, adultery. Her childhood was rather traumatic, and it seems like she bears the scars.
I think she does, and I think, but I mean, I don't see that as an excuse. What the problem is that she introduced Andrew to this high life, and then her debts. I mean, as I was reading this morning, her debts are the things that persuaded Andrew to keep his friendship with Epstein. Not totally, of course, but part of it was, you know, that Andrew needed to borrow money from Epstein to pay off Fergie's debts, because Andrew didn't have the money himself. So the whole thing is a horrible, horrible mess. And I do feel that Fergie's responsible for quite a lot of it. And I think she probably feels she's responsible for it too.
Well, it is terribly sad how it's all played out. And King Charles waited so long to become king. And this is the mess that he inherits. We've got the small matter of his cancer battle as well. Briefly, Ingrid, if you can, what about the future of the monarchy? Do you think it's still secure, notwithstanding the bad headlines?
I do think the monarchy is still secure for very much the reasons I said. What alternative is there? And there's been so many scandals that have hit the monarchy over so many years that, and this one has obviously been the longest and probably the worst. It's certainly in lifetime. But I just think, yes, the monarchy, they're carrying on doing their everyday work. I mean, obviously, it's dented them and dented their popularity, but I'm absolutely sure that they will carry on. I think you get a bit dramatic thinking, oh, gosh, this is so bad for the monarchy. But then the next day, something else happens. News moves so fast now.
Ingrid, the deepest privilege to have you on the programme. Thank you for your wise counsel on this issue. Ingrid Seward, esteemed royal expert and biographer. What an education that was. Well, what do you think? The monarchy, is it fatally wounded by the Andrew scandal? I'm going to take your calls next. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast, thank you so much for your calls, texts and tweets this morning. So much feedback to squeeze into just a couple of minutes. Let's take a voice note from Trish, if I may, David.
Morning, Mark. Trish in Cornwall. I like Ange. She's feisty, she's ambitious, she's one of the people. But she's also undereducated and far too common to be in high office or taken seriously on the world stage. I think she's great for the party, but terrible for the country. Cheers now.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for that, Trish. There you go. I think you've balanced it very nicely there. She's an interesting personality, but not up to the top job. Be afraid, be very afraid. Can we take a call from Anne before Herbie? Because Anne wants to talk about Angela Rayner. Anne, what do you think about your country being led by the ginger growler?
Well, I'm very similar to the lady before me. But I think nobody should be in Parliament to represent the country that uses language like that. Such a scum. The Speaker should have drawn out about it. Yeah. And it's disgusting. She prides herself on being working class. But I don't know anybody that would talk to somebody like that. It's disgusting.
And what do you think?
Have a personal shopper.
What do you think of? What was that about a personal shopper?
I'd love her to have one because I think her taste in clothes is diabolical, and she would be going on the world stage.
What do you think of the idea of Angela Rayner at the G7 conference or at the White House with the president? What do you think of that?
I cringe because she has no manners, and as the lady said before, yes. No, I can't get my head around it at all.
Many can't.
If my grandchildren ever spoke to anybody like that, there would be a load of trouble.
There would be hell to pay.
But they do respect. They've been brought up well, man. She's a disgrace to the country.
Anne, damning words. I wish we had longer. What a brilliant call. Please call me again soon. We love having you on the show. Anne in Gwynedd, who is not happy with the idea of Rayner taking over at number 10. Herbie's in Harrow. Herbie, the licence fee goes up to 180 quid in April. Is it worth the money, sir?
Yeah, good morning, Mark. No, Mark, because all I'm buying is repeats. Sorry, can you repeat that? Yeah, repeats. Come on, it's ridiculous. We don't get entertained anymore. With all the sports that are now on, the World Olympics, soccer, rugby, World Cup, this, that and the other, the main channels take the programmes off that people would like to watch because they don't like sports, and they've been disrupted. They've got all these channels. They can't put all these onto that channels, which rather than take the mainstream channel away. But it's the repeats that just gets on my nerves.
Herbie, what would you say? What would you say to the BBC, who could argue that millions of people watch and listen to the BBC every single day and they love it?
I say they're liars. They're like the bloody government. Liars. Absolute lies. Nobody likes it. Talk to anybody. That's all they keep saying is, I keep seeing repeats. Yes, we know that. And this is what's happening. We're not being entertained like we used to be, Mark. And it's just a shame. And we pay a lot of money for nothing, really.
Herbie.
We pay for it.
Damning words. Thank you for your call, Herbie. We'll definitely speak soon as well. The brilliant Peter Cardwell is live in just 2 minutes' time. He's with me in the studio. Hello, Peter.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Can I just say I'd pay 180 quid a year just to listen to you?
Oh, you.
And I'm not the only one.
You can. If you want to, Mark, you can give me £180
I might do
just
that.
to listen to me. I'll send you some voices.
Can I pay slowly? Times are hard.
Direct debits, monthly. We've got a member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, a Labour MP, who's coming on in just a few minutes' time to talk about all things Rayner, Starmer and Mandelson. We've also got our top political commentators on the debate desk, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman and Matthew Hulbert, talking about all those